us. Our OPEC governor is also here. We acknowledge Mr. Demola Adeyemi Barrow. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here. Not leaving out the chairman of OPTS, MD, SPDC, and country chair for Shell companies in Nigeria, Mr. Sagi Okumbo. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're, of course, joined by other MDs of the IOCs. Here we have Mr. Mr. Bouye as representative. We have Mr. James Swaz, MD of Chevron. We also have Mr. Shane Harris, the MD of Exxon. Very good morning to all of you IOC MDs, other representatives who've joined us this morning. Our IPPG chairman is also here, and chairman of Water Smith, Alhaji Abdulrasak Isa. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I did take a moment to acknowledge some other individuals before the event started because I know the list was going to be long. But suffice to say that we welcome all of our captains of industries, heads of other agencies, industries, our guests, our speaker of the Nigerian International Energy Summit worldwide with African energy potential. The short video that played before I began speaking pretty much just sums up what NIES has been able to accomplish. We'll move on swiftly now to, which is my opening. We'll take a welcome spot with the Group Chief Executive of NNP, center stage with OPEC Secretary General. That will be followed by our two ministers who will be addressing us, and then the presidential address will follow. Group photographs will follow shortly, joining for that group photograph when we get to that will be a short conference, the international panel, who the minister addressed as the father of the ministry, and indeed one who has been driving this conference as a captain. Welcome, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Petroleum Resources, His Excellency, Ambassador Nicholas Agbo Ella, for his opening comments.
Yeah. Your Excellency, Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu, GCFR President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by Her Excellency Dr. Doris Uzoka Nete, Minister of State for Finance. Distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Representatives here present, my bosses, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, Oil for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Honorable Ekperipe Ekpo, the Honorable Minister of Trade, of Industry, Trade and Investment, the Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, ably represented, General Anna, His Excellency Mohammed Ahmed, Secretary General, Gas Exporting Countries Forum. I was with him last 2 weeks in Doha, where I chaired the Executive Board member, Executive Board of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. The Secretary General of the organization, African Petroleum Producers Organization. The Special Advisor to the President on Energy, Mrs. Olu Venga, I appreciate you are present here too. Chief Executive Officers of the various ministries, departments, and agencies, heads of agencies of the ministries, captains of industry, please let me rely on the able protocol established by the industry leaders, captains of industries, partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a profound honor and a distinct privilege to welcome you to the 8th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit, NIES 2025. On behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, I extend my heartfelt appreciation and warm regards to all distinguished delegates, strategic partners, esteemed industry leaders, and stakeholders who have traveled from across the globe to participate and contribute towards the development of Nigeria and Africa's energy future. Since its inception in 2018, NIES has evolved into Nigeria's sanctioned oil and gas platform. Endorsed at the highest level of government, and you could see the representation of Mr. President here at this event, NIES has consistently served as a catalyst for energy policy evolution, market-driven strategies, and sustainable development. The summit's success is that bridges continents and sectors. The past 7 editions have set a strong foundation for the 8th edition, instilling confidence in NIES 2025 potentials and outcome. This year's theme, Bridging Continents, Connecting Investors Worldwide with Africa's Energy Potential, serves as a global call to action for cooperation and strategic investment. Africa, with its vast energy potentials, is at a crossroad of immense opportunities, and the global push for sustainable energy powerhouse is committed to playing a pivotal role in this emerging energy landscape. In line with our commitment to advancing Africa's energy summit, security and growth, I'm pleased to highlight Nigeria's ongoing effort, and spearheaded by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources in collaboration with the African Petroleum Producers Organization and the African Export-Import Bank, aims to create a dedicated financial institution focused on unlocking energy investment across the continent. The AEB will serve as a vital funding vehicle to bridge Africa's energy infrastructure gaps, catalyze upstream, midstream, and downstream projects, and drive sustainable energy solutions that align with the continent's unique needs. Furthermore, as part of Nigeria's proactive approach on energy transition and innovation, the ministry, in collaboration with the Foundation for Sustainable Social Responsibility in Emerging Africa, FOSTRA, hosted the country's first ever International Hydrogen Conference from 26 to 28 November 2024 in Abuja. We know this is going to be pivotal in the coming days. This groundbreaking event convened experts, policymakers, and investors from across the globe to explore hydrogen's transformative role in Africa's energy mix. The conference underscored Nigeria's ambition to position itself as a leader in hydrogen sources as a feedstock for blue hydrogen, while exploring green hydrogen opportunities powered by renewable global decarbonization goals, while unlocking new economic opportunities. Our National Gas Expansion Program, Nigeria Gas Transportation Network Code, and the Decade of Gas initiative, gas utilization, reduce flaring, and foster industrialization. With the surging global demand for cleaner fuels, wide energy transition. The numbers from the 2024 edition underscores the significance and impact of NIES. We had well over 5,000 participants from 45 countries, representing government delegates, IOC, NOC, independent producers, over 2 on the sidelines of the last event, further cementing NIES as a tangible driver of growth and development in Africa's energy sector. The energy sector globally is at an infectious state. Africa's energy demand is expected to grow by 60% by 2040, driven by population growth, urbanization, and industrialization. Excellencies, allow me to extend my deepest appreciation to all who have contributed to the success of this summit, to the parastatals regulatory bodies and agencies within Nigeria's energy ecosystem, the NUPRC, NMDPRA, NCDMB, PTDF, PTI, NNRA, and our sister ministries and agencies from other sectors. Your joint support development. To our strategic partners and sponsors, your continued support amplifies NIES' global reach and impact. I extend special gratitude to Brevity Anderson, the event producers, for their unwavering commitment and organizational excellence, which have once again delivered a world-class summit. And like the MC said, within 12 hours, we had shifted from the banquet hall to this place. To the local organizing committee, your tireless dedication and meticulous planning have ensured that NIES 2025 stands out as a landmark event. As we embark on this multi-day journey of thought leadership, dialogue, and deal-making, I urge all participants to leverage the unique opportunities NIES offers, engage in meaningful collaboration that can lead to transformative investment, participate in policy shaping dialogue that align with Nigeria and Africa energy goals, explore the exhibitions to witness the future of energy, from AI-driven exploration to cutting-edge renewable technologies. Most importantly, contribute to the shared vision of an inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous energy future for Nigeria, Africa, and the world. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I reiterate the federal government of Nigeria's unwavering commitment to fostering an enabling environment for investment, innovation, and sustainable development in the energy sector. Today's challenges, from fluctuating global oil prices to the urgent need for decarbonization, are formidable. Yet, within these challenges, the opportunity lies for collaboration, growth, and transformation. The government is ready to support and facilitate these opportunities. I welcome you to the 8th Nigeria International Energy Summit, NIES 2025. May this summit be a beacon of ideas, a marketplace of solutions, and a crucible for enduring partnership. Thank you all, and I wish you a productive and impactful summit, and I look forward to your participation in NIES 2026. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nicholas Agbo-Ella, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I can't proceed with this event without acknowledging these two persons in the room of my job in this industry. Let me acknowledge. Now, I didn't recognize him because all my life of knowing him, he's always wearing the South Resource Control attire, but today he's in suit. So forgive me, sir. The chairman, Senate Committee, Petroleum Upstream, representing Cross River Central, Senator Etang Jonah Williams. Distinguished, my apologies. Let me also acknowledge my brother, my friend, Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Resources Midstream, Honorable Prince Henry Odianose Okoji. Very good morning. From Algeria, let me quickly acknowledge the Honorable His Excellency Mohamed Akab, the Minister of State for the Ministry of Energy and Mines and Renewable of Algeria, represented by his Chief of Staff, Mohamed Nassim Halal. Mohamed, thank you so much. Here, Mr. Abubakar Njay, very good morning to you. Trust Atlantic Energies, and of course, the CEO of Wando Energy Resources, Alex Ainoje. Very good morning to you. Welcome. Thank you so much. And a big part of that future is the Independent Petroleum Producers Group. Speaking to us now is their chairman. Please welcome Alhaji Abdul Razak Isa, who is also the chairman of Watersmith.
morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Doris Uzoka, of and cheaper fuel switch of the headquarters of the newly created Africa Energy Bank in Nigeria, specifically in Abuja, further demonstrating our strong relation, which has significantly, and then the conclusion of major the onshore and should not be taken for granted. Not long ago, the industry faced severe existential threats, but today we have renewed investor confidence and the emergence of a new energy order in Nigeria. As we gather here today, and our role closely tied to our petroleum resources, the future can no longer be solely on accelerating oil and gas production for exports. We must shift towards unprecedented growth by transforming the industry from a commodity exporter into a broader value-creating midstream and downstream industry. Effectively integrating the industry with other critical sectors of the economy is the only way Nigeria can truly harness its and the future generations. IPP's quest for industrialization by significantly investing across industry value chain in order to stimulate construction to its contribution to national oil
and of course, as we all know, and Secretary General OPEC is here, the oil will be here even by 2050, contributing to over 29% of the energy mix, and demand of at least 100 million barrels of oil equivalent even by 2050. So oil is going to be here, oil and gas will be here. And we understand this, and we know the significance. But it must be connected globally. And that's why the world recognizes that Africa is the next destination of providing greater support to the energy markets. Three things will happen. Increase oil and gas production. But of course, in all the conversations around EVs and other associated transition discussion that is going on, it is also obvious that the minerals sector plays a prominent role in the energy market. So that connectivity brings on the table the issues around minerals, oil and gas, and I know that we all believe that oil and gas will become significant. Africa will be a critical player, and connecting Africa with the rest of the world is obvious, as something that we have an obvious advantage. But that can't happen except something happens in Nigeria. As we all know, Nigeria is the largest economy. That's not in dispute. But not just largest economy, but we have the potential of growing even bigger. And I hear, Ambassador, you are saying we're going to the $1 trillion GDP. I think that's too small. That's not very ambitious. I think we can do better than this. And the projectile is showing that this country will do better than this. I'm sure we know that 1 trillion is maybe the balance sheet of one IT company somewhere. We will do better than this. This country has potential for doing this, and this industry will surely be the biggest contributor to this development. And that's already happening. Building gas infrastructure in our country, delivering gas into our domestic market. I don't want to go into the details, but we know today that every domestic gas-based industry or power plant in the country is getting all the gas that it needs because we are building the infrastructure, we are delivering on this infrastructure, and this country is working. And secondly, as we are doing this, let's not forget that the transition conversation has brought something else on the table. That gas is the transition fuel. For us, it's not just transition fuel, it's the alternative that we have. It's a better alternative, not just a transition fuel. We know today in our country, over 70% of our countrymen don't have access to clean cooking fuel. This is true. And of course, access to electricity is about 50% of our population. So there is so much space there that gas can fill. And that's why this country has taken the next step, which is to building the necessary infrastructure, creating the necessary framework, creating the necessary fiscal incentives that are required. And at this point, it's also important to highlight that this won't happen except you have the right leadership. And this leadership has brought something on the table, creating the fiscal terms for gas. As we know today, many of the FIDs that were announced in recent times would not have come up if not for the changes that Mr. President introduced. the executive orders which do a number of things: ease of business, ease of procurement, providing new fiscal incentive for non-associated gas, and even providing some incentives so that even the oil investment can happen. And that's why you are seeing all this is happening. And this is a reality that is unfolding. And this also links to a number of things that are happening also today, the tax reforms that are happening in our country today. Our industry always cries that you have over 13 different types of taxes that we pay. That not just about the quantum of the taxation, but the bureaucracy involved in it, the challenges that this throws it, and we are happy today that the tax reform that we are seeing today is clarifying issue, easing administration of taxes, reducing the number of taxes that are on the table, and ultimately allowing investors to have a long sight around their investment and what can come out of it. And all this reform, I'm sure this is what my brother Abdul Razak is referring to, this is the reality that is unfolding in our country, and we are seeing the benefit coming forward. And of course, the investors are not CSR, and there's no shame saying this. Investors are not CSR companies. Investors have seen that when they put their money in our country today, in our businesses, particularly in the oil and gas sector, they can get back their money, they can get their returns, and there's also a stable fiscal environment that will give them a long-term view of their investment. And I'm sure that is why you are seeing a number of investors are coming back into our country, and it's working for us. But all this will have no meaning to the ordinary Nigerian if you don't guarantee them energy security. And I'm sure many of us here are aware, with all respect to our foreign dignitaries, that the Petroleum Industry Act has said one thing, that our company, the largest independent petroleum producer, the largest energy company in our country, I think we can blow up trumpet on this. And of course, the largest oil and gas company in Africa, and I'm sure Gabriela, Minister Gabriela will not argue with this, is required by law to ensure energy security for our country. The meaning of this is that whatever your understanding of energy is, our understanding is wider. We think it includes electricity, and that's why we're investing in power today. We know that it means the liquid fuel, the automobile fuel of any sort, whether it's CNG or PMS, anyhow you look at it, we know that this is our role to close that space. There's a wide space today. Not minding all the conversation you hear out there is that there's still a space that must be filled. And that space is we are required by law as NNPC to do this. Stabilize the market, provide any gap that is provided, that exists in our country so that energy security is provided for our country. And no doubt, there are a lot of wide open conversations out there, but I can tell you that the law requires NNPC to fill this gap, and whenever it becomes necessary, we'll take every necessary step to ensure energy security for our country. That comes at a cost, reputation cost. You see many things happening out there, and I think I can bluntly speak to the Nigerians here. That I think one gentleman came out with 2 small generators. He said, this NNPC fuel is 15 minutes, the other is 30 minutes. I think can see a lot of energy experts here that we know this is a joke, that this is taking competition too far. And we don't have a problem with this. The market will stabilize itself, and we are sure that whenever it is necessary, NNPC is there to serve our country. It will close the gap and provide the bridges across Africa. We are engaging our partners across Africa, the other national oil companies, and I'm sure Dr. Farouk is here, will bear me witness that there's enormous engagement happening in Africa, within Africa, to share infrastructure, to build across country, across border infrastructure, like we're trying to do now. A number of them are getting to maturity across Africa, and we know that ultimately, when we interconnect Africa, energy resources and energy infrastructure, we know that ultimately what we are doing is we are building a great sub-Saharan African economy, and it is simply unavoidable. This is where everybody agreed that growth will come. The world agreed that Nigeria will be the third largest population by 2050 also. Unfortunately, it's not a bad thing, but also the country with the fastest growing middle class in the whole world. And therefore, we are the economy to compete with. And you can't do all this except you have the energy resources and the energy infrastructure in place. And we're doing everything to work. And I thank our partners across, the new and the old, the big and the small. Even the small will support you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Of course, that's why I said in all of the conversations of divestments or no divestment, the NNPCL is a constant. So if you take them international, they are present. Take them independent, they are present. Let's give the GCE another round of applause. Thank you so much. Our next speaker has been ticking the right boxes when it comes to building collaborative bridges across the continent of Africa, when it also comes to providing alternative funding for development of the resource. They also tick in the right boxes. I speak of the Association of Petroleum Producers Organization, whose Secretary General will address us now. Please welcome His Excellency Dr. Omar Farouk Ibrahim.
Excellency, Mr. President, ably represented by the Minister of State for Finance, Excellencies, Ministers of Petroleum, Oil and Gas, and all other ministers, distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Reps, executive board members and governors of OPEC, GCF, and APO. Your Excellencies, the Secretaries General of OPEC and the GCF, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, captains of the industry, Brevity Anderson, the organizers of this event, delegates from APO member countries and other delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The theme of this year's NIES, Bridging Continents, Connecting Investors Worldwide with Africa Energy Potential, to me, is not fundamentally different from the themes of most Africa energy conferences and summits in the last 3/4 of a century that Africa has been producing energy for the world, but not for its own people. And it doesn't matter whether the conferences are organized in Africa or in Europe or in America, the mindset is the same. It's a mindset that perpetuates a stereotype that exploiting their abundant natural resources without depending on others. In short, it's a mindset that sees Africa, and by implication Africans, as inferior beings because they have come to accept that others shall lead financially, technologically, militarily, and they are content to become followers. We have been made to believe the lie that Africa is too poor to finance energy projects, that it's incapable of developing and mastering the technology of the industry, and so must always look up to others to develop the technologies and get the owners of those technologies to benevolently transfer those technologies to us. That African people are too poor to buy energy, and so they have to produce their God-endowed energy for others while they remain without energy. How else, ladies and gentlemen, does one explain the paradox of a continent with the largest proportion of the world's population, nearly 1 billion people, living without access to modern energy for cooking and other domestic use, with some 600 million of its population not having access to electricity, yet we export 75% of the oil that we produce and 45% of the gas that we produce. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if Africa must change for the better and do so with the speed that its teeming youth population expects, we need to critically question many of the received wisdoms that shape the thoughts of our leaders and our people, including our academia, our media, our politicians, our military, our businessmen and women, and our industrialists. It is the recognition of this need for Africa to look within first to solutions, to find solutions to its challenges that informed Apple's decision to partner with Afrexim. Let me use this opportunity to recognize the critical role played in this effort by His Excellency Gabriel Mbagalima, who is here with us. Professor Olama, thank you very much. Permit me also to recognize the members of the Apple Ministerial Council, some of who are here with us today, for their foresight and their resolve to win Africa's energy industry from overdependence on foreign finance. We will have ample time in the next couple of days to talk about the Africa Energy Bank, our markets, and go out only when we have exhausted all our internal possibilities. And this we can do best as a collective. In other words, 54 African countries to be industrialized, developed, and get to 1 trillion, or what Akiari will say, 3 trillion or more, we are just pretenders. The only way we can do this is to collaborate, pool resources together, and then we'll get there. But if everybody sits here thinking that we want to protect our sovereignty, we don't want to have anything to do with our next country, everybody who thinks that it is the leader in Africa will continue to be downtrodden. No one African country has all it takes to address the challenges that today's energy world poses to the African continent. But working together in cooperation and collaboration, we have all it takes to surmount all the challenges. The time has come for Africans to decolonize their minds, take our destinies into our own hands so that future generations of Africans will inherit a better Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me, like Abdulrazak Issa, my brother, say that this is also my last address as President, as Secretary General of APO. I will be finishing my second term this year, and I want to use this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to the government and good people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and all APO member countries for the support I got during my tenure. In particular, I want to thank my former employer, Malam Kolokele Kyari, for his support, especially when I came up with the idea of the Africa Energy Bank. Many people thought I was crazy. Come on, Africa, you're too poor. We had a conversation. He said, look, I believe in this. Nigeria will drive it. And it happened. Today, Nigeria, through the NNPC, is the highest contributor to the Africa Energy Bank Fund. I want to thank you very much, and I sincerely hope that together we will be able to move Africa into a better continent. I thank you.
So you that the Secretary General of APO is also moving on from that position. So you can say it's breaking news from NIES 2025. Let's please give the APO Sec Gen another round of applause. And I started thinking, could this be the reason why in Africa we have some sit-tight leaders? When African leaders say he wants to go, they are saying stay, stay, stay. Just thinking. But thank you for your service. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gas is of course said to be a transition fuel. Some have said no, it should not be transitioning, it should be a destination fuel. But for our next speaker, gas is all they know. Gas is the Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. Please welcome His Excellency, NG.
Minister in charge of Finance, honorable ministers, esteemed dignitaries, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. Good morning. On behalf of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, I am deeply honored to deliver this goodwill message at such a prestigious summit. I extend my sincere appreciation to the leadership and people of Nigeria for their warm host player in the global energy landscape continues to demonstrate remarkable leadership in fostering investment of profound transformation in the global energy industry. The world is seeking secure, reliable, and sustainable energy to drive economic growth, accelerate industrialization, and enhance the quality of life for billions while protecting the environment. Natural gas as the security, affordability, and sustainability. Africa stands at the forefront of this energy transformation, endowed with over 8% of the world's proven natural gas reserves, a resource that presents a remarkable opportunity to enhance energy access, drive economic growth, foster regional integration, and contribute to global energy stability. At the same time, the continent's energy needs are rising rapidly, with Africa's population projected to grow by an additional 1 billion people by mid-century. Energy demand is expected to more than double by 2050. The Gas Exporting Countries Forum remains steadfast in supporting Africa's energy aspirations. Representing 20 of the world's leading gas-producing nations, including 9 African members, the GECF is committed to facilitating investment, fostering dialogue, supporting capacity building, leveraging technology, and providing comprehensive market data and analysis that enable informed decision-making. I wish you all a successful and productive summit, and I look forward to our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Engineer Mohammed Hamel, Secretary General of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. Please, let's give him another round of applause. Many have asked the question of the oil exporting countries forum, the one we call OPEC, voice when many were drowning the voice of the industry. At the last OPEC seminar, a video was presented that showed how oil had developed. Voice is not drowned, and the world is reminded of the development oil has brought to it. Is the Secretary General of OPEC, who we have had the honor of hosting at NIES for many years. Please welcome with me His Excellency, the SG of OPEC, Hilton Al-Gais.
Very good morning to everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's always a great pleasure to be back in Nigeria, in Abuja. This great audience. Allow me to start by addressing His Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, ably represented by the State Minister for Trade and Finance, Your Excellency Senator Heineken Lokbobiri, Excellencies, Ministers, Ambassadors, heads of international organizations, officials. Forgive me if I forget anybody, but it's an honor to be here standing in front of you to represent the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, and to participate today in NIES, the Nigeria International Energy Summit. I stand on previous protocols by extending my best wishes to all the esteemed guests and attendees, congratulating also the organizers, the sponsors, the exhibitors, and everyone associated with this distinguished event for making it a resounding success. We are very grateful to the President's support for OPEC. As Richmond was talking about the role that OPEC does and plays, we will continue to talk about that maybe later on today on the panel and in my comments later on. But we thank you for those words, Richmond. We are grateful for the President's support and also supporting Nigeria to continue to fulfill its inspiring role in the affairs of our organization. More Nigeria for its leadership, not only in Africa, but globally, and more importantly for me, within OPEC. Nigeria is an extremely important member of OPEC, and returning here actually feels like home from home. I was here last year and a couple of times before. Also, I'd like to, of course, thank you for the world-class hospitality which we witnessed last night over dinner. My team and myself, thank you to the organizers and to everybody. It's important here also to note that successive generations of Nigerian public servants, amongst whom my brother Dr. Umar Farouk Ibrahim is here, have served, and many captains of industry have served and contributed to making OPEC a success that it is today, and also the OPEC-Nigeria relationship a true success. For their own role in this common endeavor, I'd like to recognize and thank His Excellency Senator Heineken Lokbobiri, Minister of State Petroleum Resources and the head of Nigeria's delegation to OPEC, Mr. Ademola Adeyemi Bello, Nigeria's governor to OPEC and the chairman of its Board of Governors for 2025, and of course, Mr. Mele Kyari, Nigeria's national representative to OPEC's Economic Commission Board. Thank you all for the role that you are doing in the various organs within the organization to make sure that it continues to succeed. Also, allow me to thank the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum, Ambassador, thank you for your support. Moving on to the theme of this year's event, the NIES this year, the theme is Bridging Continents. I think those are very wisely chosen words. Connecting investors with Africa's energy potential. I would like to congratulate the organizers for selecting such an important theme, one that chimes so much with OPEC's own mission. Unlocking the full potential of this great continent is an utmost priority for OPEC. Let me repeat that. Unlocking the full potential of this continent's great potential is a priority for OPEC. And that's why I'm here. My team are here, and we will continue to work closely with the Nigerian government and our other African members to unlock this potential. Our organization has strong and enduring African connections and identity. Half of our member countries hail from this great continent. This includes, of course, the most populous country in Africa, Nigeria, and the geographically largest in Africa, which is Algeria. Of course, we are privileged to count on Congo, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and Libya as other member countries. In addition to that, we have two African countries who joined the historic OPEC Plus agreement, the Declaration of Cooperation, namely Sudan and South Sudan. We anticipate at OPEC a very bright future for Africa's oil industry, with substantial opportunities for growth, with an abundance of natural reserves. The continent is home to 5 of the top 30 oil-producing countries. We all know and we see the young and vibrant population in Africa. Therefore, it's judicious to discuss how we can unlock the potential that this great continent brims with. And how do we create the investment-enabling environment that attracts the requisite amount of capital to really fully utilize and realize that potential? Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, OPEC's raison d'etre is to contribute to long-term stability in the oil market. We do this because we know that it is a prerequisite for investors to plan in the short, medium, and the long term. The investment needs of the oil industry are sizable, with cumulative investment requirements amounting to $17.4 trillion from now to 2050. Given these facts, I am personally delighted to discuss these critical issues of our time at this prestigious event in Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in September of this year, OPEC will commemorate the 65th anniversary since it was founded. In preparing for this milestone, the team at the Secretariat are dusting off artifacts in our archives, rereading the key documents and updating many of our history books and documents. It is amazing what you can find in those documents. What is glaringly clear from this analysis of OPEC's history is the African orientation of our organization. We know from subsequent history how blessed we were when, in July 1971, this great country, Nigeria, became a valued member of OPEC. OPEC is immensely proud to count Nigeria as a member country. Nigeria's membership has enabled our organization to achieve the successes it has accomplished over 6 decades and a half, and the future of our strong relationship is definitely bright. Once again, allow me to conclude by thanking the government of Nigeria and everybody who has been responsible for arranging this event, and to make my mission and my team a success. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Hilton Al-Gais, the Secretary General of OPEC. Of course, pledging the continuous commitment of OPEC to represent this dynamic industry. Let's please hear another round of applause for him. Before the election, many industry experts advocated for gas to have not just a voice, but a minister or ministry of his own. And since the creation of that part of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, gas truly has gained very good acceleration across the entire value chain of gas. And let's welcome our Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources, Gas, the Right Honorable Obogemeng Ekperikpe Ekpo, for his address. Make the applause a lot better for our minister. Thank you. By the way, we're 2 speeches after his to the end of the opening ceremony. So thank you for your patience so far.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished senators, members of House of Representatives, my brother, the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil, other ministers that are here, OPEC Secretary, GCFR Secretary, the Authority Chief Executive, CCE, my dependable brother, the GCEO of NNPC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, I can't forget the father of the ministry, the permanent secretary, and my dearest sister, SA, on energy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course the critical stakeholders that are gathered here, you are welcome. It is with great honor and enthusiasm that I welcome you all to the 8th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit, NIES 2025. This foremost gathering of policymakers, investors, and industry experts is a testament to our shared vision for a sustainable and prosperous energy future in Nigeria and across the African continent. The theme for this year's summit, Bridging Continents, Connecting Investors Worldwide with Africa's Energy Potential, underscores the significance of collaboration and strategic partnership in unlocking Africa's vast energy resources. This gas industry address will focus on infrastructure projects, policy and regulatory reforms, gas utilization and export initiatives, domestic gas initiative, and a fusion for the future. Over the past 2 years, Nigeria's gas sector has undergone remarkable transformation, marked by substantial advancement in infrastructure, policy reforms, gas utilization, and domestic initiatives. These milestones highlight our unwavering commitment to the renewed hope agenda of President Bola, Ahmed Tinubu administration through maximizing our abundant natural gas resources to drive economic growth, enhance energy security, and support the global transition towards cleaner energy solutions. In recognition of the natural gas as a catalyst for Nigeria's economic growth, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu reaffirmed the government commitment to the Decade of Gas initiatives, launched in 2021. This policy aims to position Nigeria as a leading gas-powered economy by 2030 through infrastructure expansion, increased domestic utilization, and export growth. Key projects include pipeline development, gas-based industries, and gas-to-power initiatives. By fostering a business-friendly environment, Nigeria is building a sustainable gas ecosystem that drives industrialization, job creation, and energy security, ensuring a cleaner and a prosperous future. The Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano AKK gas pipeline remains a flagship project in our national gas expansion drive. The AKK pipeline, spanning 614 kilometers, would enhance gas supply to key industries and commercial hubs across Nigeria. With an expected completion date of 2025, create jobs and attract investment in manufacturing and power generation. The landmark enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA) in 2021 laid the foundation for a more competitive and transparent oil and gas industry. Over the past 2 years, we have successfully commercialized NNPC PIA. These reforms have fostered regulatory certainty and improved investor confidence in our gas sector. In September 2024, Nigeria achieved another milestone by granting UTM Offshore Limited the first ever license for floating liquefied natural gas LNG plants. This in 2.8 metric tons per annum of LNG and 500,000 metric tons of liquefied petroleum gas, effectively reducing gas flaring and enhancing Nigeria's export capacity. NIE will supply 270 million standard cubic feet of gas per day. This initiative is expected to generate $1.5 billion annually in export revenue, reduce fertilizer import by 30%, and save Nigeria approximately $200 million in foreign exchange annually. In response to the removal of fuel subsidy in 2023 and the resulting surge in petrol prices, the government launched a nationwide CNG initiative to provide cost-effective and environmentally friendly transportation alternatives. With over 100,000 vehicles targeted for conversion and a $200 million investment in CNG infrastructure, this program is crucial in reducing transportation costs and promoting energy sustainability. In September 2024, the federal government of Nigeria, through the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, MDGIF, invested 122 billion naira on equity participation into, at this point in time, I have to NPC for his vision Kogi State, which he has assured me is engaging more with other stakeholders, the private sector, to make sure and replicate this in all team. God will strengthen you to carry it on. Nigeria is steadfast in its commitment to leveraging natural gas as a catalyst for economy. We have undertaken over the past 2 years reflect our dedication to creating an enabling environment for investment, innovation, and sustainable energy solutions. As we convene at NIES 2025, let us seize this opportunity to forge and accelerate the development of Nigeria gas services to drive Africa's economy. I extend my gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his unwavering support.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Obogeme Mekberikwe Ekpo, the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Gas, relaying out some of the accomplishments since the establishment of that part of the ministry for us here at NIES 2025. Let's please give him another round of applause. Let me indulge me, please, to just acknowledge here now he's joined us, the Executive Secretary of NCDMB, Engineer Felix Omashola Ogbe. One welcome to you. Very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We, in Africa, would like to respect our elders. And there's some of them in the room, I can't just mention all of them. But two regulators, elder statesmen regulators. One, former DPR director, Mr. Austin Lawrence-Shola. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And two, the only former regulator that wears a cap with a feather, Obuago, Pioneer ES of NCDMB. Please, a warm applause for Engineer Ernest Mwapa. Moving on now, from gas, we go to oil. They say before, gas was a distant relative of oil in terms of producing it, but they were Siamese twins sometimes when they're coming out. But our next speaker is one who is committed to tell anyone who is interested in listening that if the global north took a smooth ride to industrialization, for President Trump's emergence, have always believed in drill, baby drill. Welcome, the distinguished Senator Heineken Lopobiri, Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Oil.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, here represented by the Honorable Minister of State for Finance. Your Excellencies, please, I don't want to make more enemies. With protocols, I've already made enough enemies in the course of my job. And so please, permit me to please stand on the existing protocol. Why do I say so? Because if I start by, attempting to, to do protocols, I will annoy a lot more people. And, the first of them will be the SA energy, to Mr. President, because I'm still practicing to pronounce her surname, Well, please permit me to, recognize my twin brother, the Honorable Minister of State for, Gas. But let me not forget, the Chairman Senate Committee on Upstream, my brother, Senator, Ethan Williams, his counterpart in the House of Reps, who is also here, captains of industry, please just permit me to say, ladies and gentlemen, it's in a very rare privilege and, and a responsibility to welcome all of you, to the 8th edition of the, Nigeria International, Energy Summit. This summit, comes with the theme, bridging continents, connecting investors worldwide. With Africa's energy potentials. My job is also made a lot easier, because when you had the privilege of speaking last before Mr. President, you will agree with me that, whatever that may be contained in the speech may have been spoken by those who spoke before you. First of them was the Permanent Secretary who chose to speak about everything contained in my speech without authority. I didn't give him the approval to speak about everything. But he's Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, so he took the liberty to speak about everything, pertaining to the oil and gas sector. And, I congratulate you for a very brilliant speech. But next time, don't try it. Let me, say that having had the privilege of, hearing what has been spoken by other people, I don't intend to bore any of you by repeating what, they have said. But let me, recognize the team from Saudi Arabia. At the OPEC level, Nigeria maintains a very good relationship with, the Minister of Energy, who is a prince in Saudi Arabia. And when I, wrote to him and spoke to him, he said he will not be able to come, but he will send a very high-powered delegation. And I'm happy that, he sent a very high, powered delegation led by, Elijah Anas. You're welcome to Nigeria. Let me also, say that today happens to be the National Day for Kuwait. So ordinarily, the Secretary General for Nigeria. It just is tantamount to somebody skipping Independence Day celebration for an event in another country. So I think that he deserves another round of applause. And coincidentally, today happens to be the birthday of the OPEC governor of Nigeria. What a coincidence, OPEC governor, who doubles as the chairman of the OPEC Board of Governors. He's one of the few people who had been made OPEC governor outside the bureaucracy, of the ministry. So I congratulate you and wish you happy birthday. Let me say that in the last 1.5 years, a lot has happened under President Bola Tinubu. So much had happened that has now, changed the entire energy landscape in Nigeria. When the president came, the story was that Nigeria wasn't an investment destination. Why? If you go to the global stage and campaign for investment in Nigeria, you should also be willing to say, come and invest at will and also divest at will. Before we came, for over 2 years, there were pending divestments in Nigeria that were basically disincentive to investment in Nigeria. All of you seated here, if you want to invest in any country, the global norm is that you go to any country you want to invest at will and also have the privilege to divest at will. But where that is not the case, that will be a major fundamental disincentive to investment. So when this president came, the story was like that. But when he came as a businessman, he changed the narrative. Today, I'm very proud to announce, and this is just an addendum to what the Permanent Secretary has said, to what IPPG has said, to what my colleague in gas had said, to what GCO, had said. But I said I don't want to repeat anything somebody has said, but adopt everything they have said as my own. But I'm just adding an addendum. That look, as an addendum, it's important for me to state that Nigeria is ready for business. And under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, Nigeria has shown. In case we have forgotten, let me remind you that Owando acquired, Nigerian Airship Oil Company. Owando, you are smiling. I can see that you are smiling. We also had Chapel Energies, that acquired, stake in, Total Energies, and then they also have, they use their vehicle or the MIM, and then they have, they use Equinor, in Agbami oil field operated by Chevron. Seplat acquired ExxonMobil, which was a major issue. And Renaissance is buying over Shell. And this is very fundamental. It underscores the fact that Nigeria is a very, very attractive investment destination. Bring your capital to invest, and you can divest at will. It also shows that we have developed or grown enormous local capacity. That those who are buying over these assets are those who have worked in Shell and the IOCs alike, and they have capacity to be able to run these companies in a manner that will be profitable. Nigeria has nothing to lose. We'll get a royalty, we'll get our taxes, we'll get our benefits, nothing to worry about. And I have no hesitation making this case at the global stage, saying that Nigeria has nothing to lose. It's also important for me to state here that no IOC is leaving Nigeria. All the IOCs cannot find a better location than Nigeria for business. I'm in constant touch with OPTS, comprising the IOCs, and they told me that Nigeria is still the best destination for business. And they affirmed their commitment to say they are not leaving Nigeria. At the worst, they are leaving for deep offshore, which is beyond the capacity of IPPG members. I know IPPG will get there someday, but not today. So nobody is leaving Nigeria, contrary to the impression, some people created that, IOCs are leaving Nigeria. No IOC is leaving Nigeria. They are leaving for deep offshore. It's also important for us to say that because of, the strategic policies of this government, we've had, out of the 4, final investment decisions made in Africa, 3 are in Nigeria. Nigerians were angry when, somebody said in Rwanda that Nigeria hadn't attracted investment in 12 years. Have we not changed the story? This government has changed the story with the announcement of $5 billion Bonga North. And let me use the opportunity to also say that, look, a lot more groundbreaking announcements are coming in the next few months. There's actually a company that we're talking with that will announce investment of $20 billion. So for me, the government had changed the entire narrative. Nigeria has created the best environment that anybody who is willing to invest, can think of. You agree with me that Africa has enormous, oil and gas resources that remain to be untapped. But we believe that fundamental problem has to do with funding. Because of this campaign about, energy transition, the global north is slowing down investment in Africa. But they are not slowing down investment in the global north. And so the time has come for us, Africa, to complement the funding that is expected from outside Africa by establishing the Africa Energy Bank. And I want to use this medium, to thank, the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, with the Nigerian Secretary General, Umar Farouk, who is here, together with Afri-Exim Bank, that came up with this initiative. And today, I'm glad to say that the bank is about taking off in Nigeria. I had to go and inspect the building with, Apple Secretary General a few days ago. Our objective is that this bank has to take off in the first quarter of 2025. And this will provide the solution to our financial problems. Whereas the West is saying that, look, we are slowing down investment in fossil fuel, they are not slowing down. But they have money. You don't have money. And that is why we have to come up with this ingenious idea of raising a bank where everybody in the world can invest. In every bank, there are several shareholders, The world has recognized that Africa can't be left behind. Africa has enormous resources, but these resources have, and the only way you can have them to the market is by securing investments. I was in Davos in January, courtesy of the approval of Mr. President. I was in Davos, and I was in a panel with 8 other ministers from different, parts of the world. And one of the ministers said that, in Europe, they have about 300 billion euros available for loans to Africa. And I had no hesitation telling him that we don't need loans. We need investments. We need partnerships. We need investment. Don't give us loans. Come and invest and then make your returns in investment, instead of giving us loans. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has made significant progress since the last time we met in 2024. 2024, first of all, when I became minister, we're doing about 1 million barrels. Today, we're doing about 1.8 million barrels. That is 80% growth. Whether I like Henneken's face or not, that is the truth. We have made significant progress in oil. The progress made in gas has been, well said by my colleague, in gas. So we made tremendous progress. But these things couldn't have been possible without the strategic leadership provided by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, who through executive orders and extant policies made all this possible. Let me also not forget that, look, for 40 years, we were subsidizing PMS. When GCO spoke, the PIA gave NNPC an obligation to be supplier of, last resort as far as energy is concerned. So whether, he likes it or not, whether NNPC likes it or not, NNPC had obligation to provide PMS. But with the support of all Nigerians, we have exited subsidy. Today, the downstream sector is completely deregulated. Price is finding its level. I was in Yanagua, the capital of Bayelsa, in December, and I had, the privilege of going around the city. NNPC filling stations were selling higher than an independent, filling station. NNPC was selling about, 1,050 naira. Meanwhile, a sister filling station owned by a poor Bayelsa man was selling for 999 naira. That is the essence of deregulation. And we have freed up resources that are available for all tiers of government. This was a decision that no government could take until the president, when he took over office, said, look, subsidy was gone. And today, the entire West African sub-region is happy for it. You recall that when it was done, Cameroonians were protesting, those in Chad were protesting because they were the actual benefits of a so-called subsidy. Sometimes, when you want to take people to a destination, they will not understand. But if you are a leader, you must take very hard decisions. And that is why you are elected. So President The point I want to conclude with, is in this summit. And all of us are looking forward to hearing from the industry practitioners what additional innovative ways we can explore to unlock the use opportunity to call on sister, countries to say, look, we are in this thing together. We have to collectively provide solutions to the energy poverty problems in Africa. We have to collectively work together to ensure that we bridge the gap that exists in technology, in finance, in everything that you can think of. We should also have competitive fiscal and regulatory regimes to Benin, to Niger, to other countries. And whatever enters Nigeria is distributed around the entire West African sub-region. So we are not in competition, but we have a common objective of unlocking the potentials that exist in Africa that is in abundance. Let's see how we can attract the requisite investment and solve the issue of energy poverty in Nigeria. Don't be deceived by the rhetoric about energy transition. We're not against energy transition, but before you transit, you must have energy security first. I've always given this story that when I was in Cape Town, somebody made a statement that, Burj Khalifa is 160 floors. Those in the global north use the lift to go to 160th floor. And they just switched off the lift. Say, Africa, take the staircase. By the time you get there, they have finished the meeting. No? Even if the meeting is going on, you are tired. You have no contribution to make. That is not the ambition of Africa. Africa needs strategic partnerships. Africa needs investment. Africa already has substantial investment in oil and gas. We want to expand the investments, much more than most countries in the global north. We have a robust regulatory framework on exploration in a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable way. We have adopted gas as a transition fuel. We have a law on climate change. We have penalties for gas flaring. These things may not exist in most other countries in the West. But in addition to this, the priority should be energy security for industrialization and growth. Anything short of that, Africa will not follow. Let me conclude, by thanking all of you to be part of the summit. We had to bring, this opening ceremony to Transcorp Hilton for your own comfort. We believe that, it will be more comfortable for you, to just leave the comfort of your room and come down to this Congress hall instead of making your way to the State House. We did this for your comfort. Please appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I believe that what are looking forward to the next few days, fruitful, discussions, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to find solution, to our own energy, security problems. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Since the removal of fuel subsidy, there has not been queues around petrol stations a lot waiting to get the product. The product is a bit more available now, right? It's a bit more available. I think that's what the minister was saying, that the product is more available now. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you so much. That's a fact. It's been a lot more available since that time. Honorable Minister, sir, I also was schooled on how to pronounce that name. So I think I can get her permission to teach how to pronounce that name. So, Honorable Minister, sir, is Vahayen. It's very simple. Did I get it, madam? Vahayen. So it's just like saying Vahai. So You never forget that. But thank you so much, Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources Oil, the distinguished Senator Hynek in Lopobri. Before I proceed to the presidential address, indulge me to pass this information. Following the president's address, the representative of the president will take her position on the floor for the family photo and will, of course, be joined by the ministers, the Nigerian ministers here, and, of course, the minister from Algeria and the minister from Saudi Arabia. They will also be joined by our national host, the NNPC, IPPG, our premium partner. They'll be joined by NLNG, that's MD. Now, these companies I'm calling their MDs or CEOs, please, who are here. Thank you. Lake Oil, CEO, Total Energies, NCDMB, NUPRC, NMDPRA, of course, the agencies of the ministry. Chevron, Shell, Exxon, again, one CEO, Coleman, I've said NMDPRA, will get one from Aviva Select, one from SunTrust, Oando, Oiserv, Aradel, Doman Long. And the lawmakers will also be joining us at that time because, of course, they are here with us. I will be informing us of the others who will be joining, without saying so much. OPEC is there, Apple is there, GCF is there, But following that picture, all those whom I have called will just step forward and join the president's representative right here. And of course, our SA is also in that list. If I have not called an IOC MD in this list, the IOC MD will, of course, be joining at that time. If there's any other person that I need to put in that list, I'll get a directive to do that, and I'll have them join when the presidential representative is taking their spot. Well, not much needed to be said. From the two ministers, and indeed from the SA yesterday, we've heard all of the laudable accomplishments that has been achieved in this industry since the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, took office. He has made this industry's project one that is close to his heart. He's delivering truly as the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and therefore has sent to us one who used to be a Commissioner for Finance in her home state, and now the Honorable Minister of State for Finance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Welcome, His Excellency's representative, Dr. For all the success of the president in the industry, the applause can be better. I'm sure you agree with me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please have your seat. Thank you. I know the protocol has been established. It's very easy to actually stand or sit on it, but I would like to recognize the very special people who are here today, who have made a deliberate effort to see the success of this event. So please permit me to recognize the chairman of the Senate Committee on Oil and Gas, Chairman House Committee Oil and Gas, and other members of the National Assembly who are here. Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, my sister, but she had to take her leave to catch a flight. Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Oil, and Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Gas. Chairman, OPEC Board of Governors, the Secretary General of OPEC, Secretary General of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, foreign ministers who are here, including their representatives, ambassadors, the special advisor to the President on Energy, the Group CEO of NNPC, the Chief Executive of NUPRC. I think it should have been the other way, please. My apologies for G. All stakeholders who are here. I can see members of the security service. So please, I'm also recognizing your presence here. Industry leaders, captains of industries, distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Please, if I did not recognize you, accept me as the special guest of honor, and also extending my warm regards from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, who I'm also representing. And I'm here to address you as the President, and this is his address to you. So it's my great pleasure to address you today as we delve into the vibrant and ever-evolving landscape of Nigeria's energy sector and the abundant investment opportunities that lie ahead in 2025 and beyond. I stand before you with unwavering confidence in Nigeria's potential to be a global powerhouse in the energy sector, driven by strategic reforms, innovative policies, and a steadfast commitment to sustainable development. I extend my sincere leaders, policymakers, and investors. Nigeria's energy sector has long been a cornerstone of our economy, contributing significantly to government revenue, employment, and foreign exchange earnings. In 2025, we will witness, and we are witnessing, a renaissance in this sector, characterized by transformative initiatives and significant milestones. The operationalization of local refining marks a pivotal moment in our journey towards energy self-sufficiency and energy resilience. Landmark projects in refining and processing not only ensure that we meet our domestic demand, but also positions Nigeria as a competitive player in the global market. Nigeria is now home to the largest single-train refinery in the world, the Dangote Refinery, which is a private refinery, and also the biggest refinery in Africa. And this is due to the enabling environment created to support such investment, and we have more incentives for more investors looking into this sector. The theme is significant. It underscores the pivotal role of Nigeria and Africa in the evolving global energy transition. As we strive to meet the world's growing energy demands, we must also ensure that our policies, infrastructure, and investment align with sustainable and equitable growth. For close to 2 years, our administration has remained resolute in driving reforms and milestones in Nigeria's energy sector and the economy at large. These reforms have liberalized our economy, making it an investment destination of choice. The removal of the PMS subsidy and FX liberalization are two of the main reforms of this administration in its first year. And as the president always says, easy come, easy go. Bring your investments and do not be afraid to repatriate your investment. Allow me to highlight some of the key achievements that positions our economy as a global energy powerhouse. To ensure that our local refineries are very competitive, thereby lowering the cost of the retail price of petroleum products for our populace, we introduced the sale of crude oil in Naira. This strategic move not only enhances the operational efficiency of local refineries by reducing foreign exchange risks and transaction costs, but also fosters a stronger and more stable domestic market. By denominating crude sales in Naira, we are supporting the local currency and creating a more resilient economy. This initiative is expected to result in more affordable petroleum products for our citizens, ultimately improving their standard of living and stimulating economic growth. And this is also going to alleviate the PMS subsidy removal, the effects of the PMS subsidy removal. Dear participants, the selection of Nigeria as a host country for the headquarters of the African Energy Bank is a historic milestone in our nation's energy sector. This achievement reaffirms our leadership in Africa's energy landscape and our commitment to driving financing, fostering investment, innovation, and job creation. This milestone underscores our dedication to energy security, economic growth, and regional cooperation, ensuring a brighter, more prosperous future for all Nigerians and Africans. Strengthen the regulatory framework of our energy sector. We have successfully repositioned the Nigeria National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, as a fully commercial entity, enhancing efficiency, transparency, and competitiveness. We have also issued far-reaching executive orders that have seen a return of investment into our oil and gas sector. In the upstream sector, we have witnessed increased crude oil production owing to strategic interventions in security, infrastructure development, and in the global oil market. The launch of the presidential executive order on oil and gas sector reforms has streamlined processes, fast-tracked licensing rounds, and encouraged indigenous participation, thereby fostering local content development. We have seen increasing investment announcements and innovative ways of financing oil and gas sector, and we are open to receiving more of such exciting announcements. Our resolute determination towards the completion and operationalization of key gas infrastructure, including the AKK pipeline, will strengthen our capacity to supply clean energy to industries and households while boosting regional energy security in addition to creating jobs for our teeming youth. The implementation of the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas, the PCNGI, is transforming the transportation sector, reducing dependence on one single source of fuel, which used to be PMS, and of course, with this initiative, we're seeing more or encouraging more investment in the gas sector. We recognize that sustainable energy development requires significant investment. Our administration has taken decisive steps to create an enabling environment for investors, including fiscal incentives, streamlined regulatory processes, and robust public-private partnerships. The recent licensing rounds in the oil and gas sector have attracted interest from both local and international investors, reinforcing Nigeria's position as a preferred energy investment destination. Nigeria continues to champion regional energy cooperation through the West African Gas Pipeline and other continental initiatives, ensuring that Africa harnesses its collective energy potential. As we look to the future, we remain committed to fostering an energy ecosystem that is resilient, diversified, and inclusive. We will continue to implement policies that ensure energy security, drive industrialization, and support the aspirations of the Nigerian people. As many of you are aware, we are currently implementing a series of comprehensive reforms in our fiscal and tax policies. These reforms are designed to create a more business-friendly environment and attract both local and international investments. By simplifying our tax regulations, offering incentives, and ensuring a more transparent and predictable fiscal framework, we aim to remove barriers to entry and support the growth of businesses in Nigeria. These measures will not only make it easier for companies to invest and operate in our country, but also stimulate demand. The investment landscape in Nigeria's energy sector is brimming with opportunities, driven by a favorable regulatory environment and strategic initiatives aimed at attracting all kinds of investors. Please allow me to highlight some of the areas of opportunities for investors to explore and develop new oil blocks. Our commitment to improving security in oil and gas producing regions and streamlining regulatory processes has created a conducive environment for investment. 2, in the area of renewable energy. Our commitment to diversifying our energy mix presents significant opportunities in the renewable energy sector. Investors can explore solar energy projects, given Nigeria's abundant solar resources, as well as wind and hydro power projects. Our Decade of Gas initiative further emphasizes the strategic importance of natural gas as a transition fuel, offering opportunities in gas production and infrastructure development. 3, in domestic refining and petrochemical development. The revival of domestic refineries and the establishment of new petrochemical plants presents opportunities for investors to participate in value-added processing and production. With the coming on stream of the NNPC2 refineries, we have more refining capacity to process our crude and also deliver these products at a cheaper cost. Expand power generation and improve transmission infrastructure offers investment opportunities in both conventional and renewable energy sources. Our government's focus on increasing the share of renewable energy in the energy mix aligns with global trends and presents a sustainable investment opportunity. Hydrogen. Here in Nigeria, we are actively developing a hydrogen policy to attract investors and integrate hydrogen in our energy mix. We have unveiled a hydrogen development agenda committed to creating a unified national hydrogen policy. This policy aims to harness the potential of both blue and green hydrogen, leveraging our abundant natural resources and strategic geographic position. I therefore encourage you to be a part of our hydrogen journey. Critical energy minerals. Finally, this is a key sector to the economic growth of our nation, and we are committed to its rapid development, which are all very critical for clean energy technologies, present investors with significant investment opportunities. We will also build local refining capacities for these resources to ensure more value addition and more revenue to the country. We are continuing to remove the bottlenecks and red tapes that block investment, and we are seeing more investment flow through the creation of enabling environments and regulations and the policies to support your investment flow, strengthening investments and positioning Nigeria as a global leader in energy transformation. Let me make it clear that Nigeria will do all in her power to utilize her natural resources and energy resources to industrialize the country, create jobs, and ensure prosperity for all Nigerians. On this note, I officially declare open the 8th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit, NIES 2025. Thank you all for listening, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Please, one more time, a round of applause for His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, represented by Dr. Doris Anite, the Honorable Minister of State for Finance. I told her that she can please take her seat. I will need to do a quick arrangement here to, have more space for the pictures. So once they are done what they're doing, the President's representative will be joined on stage here by, of course, the ministers, the permanent secretary. They'll be joined on stage by the heads of agency that are present, NUPRC, NCDMB, NNDPRA that are here. They'll be joined on stage by OPEC, GECF. They will also be joined on stage by Apple. And then, if we have more space, we'll add more on the stage. Other than that, every other person will just be down here. I've read out a list earlier. I read out a list earlier. Now I will add to that list to represent the different groups in the industry. For the international service companies, the chairperson of PCTS will be joining. For indigenous service companies, the chairman of PETAN, the president of Octan will also be there. Dr. James Shindi, the CEO of Brevity. Mr. Paul Mervyn, the chairman of Brevity, will also be joining. On stage will also be the lawmakers, the senator and the honorable member who are here. They will be on stage. We're ready, guys? Thank you very much. Okay, so SA Energy Ma, President, ministers, please, you can come. Please come. Please come. SA Energy Ma, please come. Please come. Should we leave it down here and the others come up? No, I'm asking where I'm keeping the president, and up here or down up. Ma, please, the professional photographer. Decide now, I can't keep them standing. Okay, please stay here, president. Please stay here. NCDMB, Oga Komolafe, Oga Okoha, please come. PS, please come. Please come. Yes. OPTS, honorable members, please come. Please come. Now, the companies I called earlier. Yes, Algeria, I called Chevron, I called Exxon, I called NLNG, I called Algeria, please come. Saudi Arabia, Anas, okay, you're here. PCTS, yes, you're here. PCTS can come up. Others can come up. Oga, PCTS, you can come up, please. The companies I called, you can come up, please. The companies I called, for space. Companies I called can please come up. The companies I called can please come up because of space. Coleman, you can come up. Coleman, you can come up. Coleman, you can come up, please. Coleman, you can come up. Thank you. Let's get some more people up, please. Some more people can come up. Some more people can come up, please. Sir, Oga at the back there, please, some can come up. Okay, I will do that. I will arrange that, yeah. Okay. Elijah Anas, close the gap. Okay. Please, my cameraman, you need to go back. You need to go back because you are blocking the cameraman at the back. Sorry, sir. Sorry. Okay, Koran, please go. Yes, our OPEC governor, of course. Guys, please. Now, while they are standing here, after the picture, the national anthem will be played to close opening ceremony. And after that, please, we'll remain seated. Are you guys good? Can you go back? Are we good? Can you go back? Can you just go back, please? Don't waste my Oga and Madam their time. Please go back. Please go back. And please, all those who came with our So photographers, thank you. You need to clear this place now for them to go back to their seat. Please clear this place real quick. Every photographer, please leave here. Please leave here. Please leave here. Please leave here. Thank you. 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 All right. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the opening ceremony. Thank you. We will continue. We will continue to the next panel. But I will just give a few minutes of comfort break. Just very few minutes. We're continuing almost immediately. Please take care of your personal belongings. It's critical. Please take care of personal belongings. We're going to be going in another 10 minutes to the next session. In 10 minutes. In 10 minutes. So we are starting. We're starting in another 7 minutes. We're starting in another 6 minutes and 48 seconds. We're starting in another 6 and 32. Okay, so I think it would be nice if we can allow the dignitaries settle down. Those dignitaries who please, can we allow the dignitaries take their seats? Please, please, thank you. We're starting in 4 minutes. Please, can we allow them take their seats? Thank you very much. Let's free the aisle. The president's representative is taking her leave. Let's free the aisle. Please, 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 thank you very much. Let's settle down. Please, 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 can we settle down, please? Do you mind waiting down there? Please take your seats. Thank you very much. Representing you. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. We're starting in 1 minute and 35 seconds. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Can I ask photographers to kindly go back to the back of the hall, please? Thank you very much. Okay. The Secretary General of OPEC did say earlier that he will have a bit more to say in the session that would follow, and that session is about to take place now. Dr. Ben Yusuf, can we please inform the SG? Thank you. Okay. Driving cross-continental investment, scaling Africa's energy frontier is the discourse that we are beaming our searchlight on at this time. In his remarks, the APO Secretary General did say that the creation of the Africa Energy Bank is not in any way opposed to funding from outside of Africa. So this session, part of what they will be doing will be highlighting the strategic role of foreign direct investment in scaling our energy frontier on the continent. How we can access that funding to foster sustainable infrastructural development, and ultimately continue the drive of cross-continental collaboration in the oil and gas. And I'm sure that, or should I say, I hope that part of that conversation will also be around how to get the right infrastructure to accelerate development in our downstream sector. The Executive Secretary of ADA, Engineer Krager, usually would ask me a question. The question he would always ask me is, what would Africa do if Africa is not able to import PMS for 6 days? How many African countries own or have strategic reserves? So when we talk about infrastructural development, our downstream must be a key part of that conversation. Let the conversation begin now with a keynote presentation, after which I will invite the panelists to take their seats on the podium. Global investment and Africa's role in a sustainable energy future is the theme of this keynote. and it will be taken by the Secretary General of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Please welcome with me His Excellency Hilton Al-Gais.
Thank you, Richmond, for welcoming me back to the stage. Thank you, everybody. And I know it's been a long morning, so I will address this topic, which is very important, the heart of the matter here, as effectively as possible. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking Ms. Olu Verheyen, Special Advisor on Energy to the President, for hosting this upcoming session. Glad to be with you. 3 topics are at the heart of this panel discussion that will happen later on today. Indeed, they are great themes of our age. They are the nature of our future energy and Africa's role within it, and the essential need for investments that we keep talking about to secure an energy future worthy of future generations. Much ink has been spilled on the nature of the world's energy future. This is understandable given that the enormous stakes are involved. We are confronted with the challenges of delivering energy security, meeting rising energy demand, reducing emissions, and increasing energy access to those millions and billions who go without still. For developing and emerging economies like Nigeria, there is the additional challenge of generating revenue from producing the energy sources and using that to meet the development needs of its people. Such challenges, ladies and gentlemen, require policies that are clear-eyed, comprehend the difficult trade-offs that come with having multiple development needs, and are grounded in actualities and realities. In recent years, the world has been bombarded, and I repeat, has been bombarded by a swath of policy recommendations, overly ambitious targets, and arbitrary deadlines that amount to nothing more than extremely wishful thinking. These policies are usually packaged with some slogans like "Go green," "Electrify everything," and for those directed at the oil industry, which most of you here represent today, it's usually "Leave it under the ground." Some voices create the impression that renewables alone could solve. This created momentum that led to an institution called the International Energy Agency, calling for an end to investment in new oil and gas projects. If such calls were heeded, ladies and gentlemen, we could only shudder at the possible consequences for developing countries and for Africa. Of course, every ambitious policy proposal will eventually have a rendezvous with reality. Renewables alone and electrify everything as concepts pose some very serious logistical and infrastructural questions. For example, the world generates approximately between 27,000 and 30,000 terawatt hours of electricity. According to some researchers, this would need to increase to between 90,000 and 130,000 terawatt hours to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. This is a 3.5 to 5-fold increase in electricity generation in approximately 20 to 25 years, an expansion that is unprecedented in humankind history. For the requisite electricity grid infrastructure to achieve national energy and climate goals, 80 million kilometers of overhead power lines and underground cables need to be added globally by 2040. That's the equivalent of replacing the entire existing global grid. And the world has only 15 years to do that, according to the deadlines. The critical minerals essential to power lithium-ion batteries in the electric vehicles, wind turbines, and solar panels like graphite, copper, lithium would have to be mined and refined at a scale and pace that has no precedence in human history. This rendezvous with reality is long overdue. Of course, the world must reduce emissions. I repeat, the world must reduce its emissions, but we need solutions and not slogans. We need policies based on facts, not fantasies. We need an approach driven by data and not delusions. What is our energy reality? That's the question. This is a question that must be raised when we contemplate our energy future. Ladies and gentlemen, last year, 2024, saw global oil consumption reach a record high of about 104 million barrels a day. That said, it is a record that 2024 will not retain for much longer. 0.7 billion by 2050. If we look at urbanization trends, with 2/3 of the global population expected to live in cities by 2050, and the global economy expected to double in its size compared to 2023. Global primary energy demand is expected to rise by 24% from now to 2050. All, and I underline the word all, forms of energy will be required and will be necessary to meet this growth. There is room and indeed a need for renewables to meet this expanded energy demand. But we cannot put expectations solely on solar and wind that they are unable to fulfill. OPEC forecasts that the share of oil and gas in the energy mix will remain above 53% throughout to 2050. In the long term, we see global oil demand rising to over 120 million barrels a day by 2050. As already highlighted, there are many underlying factors behind this projected growth, but at a more micro level, the growth of demand for petrochemicals to produce the petroleum-derived products that are such an essential part of modern life will be critical. To reliably meet oil demand growth, the oil sector is set to require cumulative investments of $17.4 trillion by 2050. That's over $640 billion per year. Sustainable stability in the oil market is an enabling factor for an investment-friendly climate. For this reason, ladies and gentlemen, OPEC and its partners under the umbrella of the Declaration of Cooperation, widely known as the OPEC Plus Agreement, are committed to taking collective actions necessary to contribute to stable oil markets and energy markets. When we recognize the realities of our energy future, this adds a focus to efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. OPEC member countries are active in this regard. We invest heavily in renewable technologies, carbon capture, use and storage, or CCUS, direct air capture, hydrogen projects, efficiency improvements, methane reduction technologies, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I could go on for hours. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, OPEC and its member countries are indeed committed to the goals of the Paris Agreement, but we recognize that the discovery of oil and the thousands of products that are derived from it cannot just be wished away or reversed. Our challenge is harnessing the potential of this great resource in ever more efficient ways while reducing emissions. I am convinced technological innovation will be key in unlocking an emissions-free future. And while seeking to accomplish this goal, we can never lose sight of the plight of those who do not have access to amenities others often take for granted. Approximately 685 million people worldwide still lack access to electricity. Almost 2.1 billion do not have access to clean cooking fuels and technologies, and the vast majority, I need not to say, reside in sub-Saharan Africa. What is clear when we assess all these interrelated challenges, ladies and gentlemen, is that Africa will play a crucial role in our energy future. The continent's proven reserves amount to around 120 billion barrels. The world will need more of this oil in the future. Therefore, it is critical that the African oil and gas industry attracts the level of investments necessary to unlock this great potential. OPEC's role in this is contributing to market stability that offers reassurance and guidance to potential investors. Our market research and forecasting all point to the importance of Africa going forward. Additionally, We know from Nigeria's countless contributions to our organization's successes how rewarding it is to work in this great nation and this great continent. So we encourage all potential investors to look at Nigeria's oil and gas industry. My message is simple: invest, invest, invest. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, this scene-setting segment of our discussion, I'd like to pose to the panel a question on what they see as the key steps necessary for unlocking Africa's energy potential, and more importantly, how can investments be scaled up? Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Without much ado, we'll just go straight to the panel. I would have loved to tell you a little bit about our panelists before I bring them up, but because of time, let's just go. Let's welcome now His Excellency Dr. Omar Farouk Ibrahim, Secretary General of APO. He's on our panel. Let's welcome His Excellency Engineer Mohammed Hamel, Secretary General, Gas Exporting Countries Forum. He's on our panel. Just to the immediate right of the SG. Okay, let's welcome for our next panelist. Let's welcome Professor Benedict Orama, President of African Import Bank, represented by Mr. Ayo Mubarak. You're welcome to your seat on the podium. Where's Ayo? Continuing, let's welcome our next panelist, Managing Director, NLNG Limited. Let's welcome Dr. Philip Michel Bila. He's on our panel. Let's welcome the Embassy of Belgium to Nigeria, His Excellency Ambassador Peter Lengnet. You're welcome. And of course, also on our panel, let us welcome SA to the President on Energy, Mrs. Olu Arowolo Vahayan. She's on our panel. Our moderator, Managing Director of... Okay, no, that one. You're on that one. Yes, ma'am. Our moderator, the Managing Director of Energy Inc. Advisors is here already, Mrs. Rolanke Akinkube Filani. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this discussion. My name is Rolake Akinkube Filani, and I'm going to be taking us through what is hopefully a dynamic session. I've been told we have 50 minutes, so I would crave the indulgence of the panelists to please help us be concise and dynamic so we can get at least two courses over high. In a recent interview I had with you on what the government was doing in the sector, you had talked about the gas sector, for instance, attracting $700 million in new investment interest in 2024 on the back of some of these reforms. If we put that in the global context, the IEA has said Africa as a continent needs $200 billion annually. In 2024, only about 50% of that was realized. So I guess my first question to you is, what specifically is the government in Nigeria doing to attract this pool of capital, and what gains have we seen in recent months?
Thanks for that question, Rolake. So I think visionary leadership is the first thing that's required, and a long-term view, and that's exactly what the president has in his capacity as Minister of the Petroleum sector. And so in terms of attracting investments, what we did is essentially, as what the Secretary General said, take a very data-driven approach, separate facts from fantasy. And we took a hard look at our resources and why it had been difficult to attract capital to it, especially our non-associated gas, which represents close to 75% of our remaining reserves. And we know that that would help us address a lot of issues, improving reliability of supply into the markets, whether that's global, regional, or local. So the first thing we took a look at was how to make sure that we improve the commercial viability of supply, connect critical infrastructure to then commercial markets, bankable commercial markets. There is no way, there are no shortcuts, yeah? Money follows what makes sense. And so we decided to roll up our sleeves and design solutions that made sense to investors, regardless of where you're from. Whether you've invested in the Energy Bank or whether you're an IOC, we wanted to make sure that Nigeria looks attractive to you, and that's the only reason you're here, because really that's what investors care about. And that we use that investment interest to drive industrialization. And so what has happened then is really that in 2024, and I know that those numbers are correct, the scale of investment required are significant, but Rome wasn't built in a day. And so within 12 months, within the same calendar year of issuing those fiscal incentives and making sure we had unleashed the types of reforms that make it attractive to invest in our gas, we've seen the improvement of commercial viability that's improved the portfolio of most of those investors, the value of those portfolios and the returns about 30%. And so you saw almost immediately, a few weeks later, the first non-associated gas, which was 500, that's an upstream supply investment. That was about almost $600 million between Total and NNPC. There are a few more in the pipeline this year, so you'll see a lot of that. Some of the big scale ones are coming down the pipe this year. The $700 million that you referred to, again, is by looking at the incentives that are required to help us build out our midstream and downstream infrastructure. Nigeria has been a main exporter of gas. We now need to make sure that we're using that gas, we're utilizing that gas domestically and regionally. And so what we've done is offer incentives that allow people who want to make the investments in midstream infrastructure and downstream infrastructure. One of them is a major beneficiary who's sitting here, NLNG, to make sure that people, whether they're at the scale of NLNG playing in the midstream or much lower, whether you're in a CNG or LPG, that we offer fiscal incentives that allow us to attract private capital. And that's the $700 million that you're talking about. So if we add it all up, it's about 1.2 in less than a year.
That's fantastic. I think it's fair to say that we're seeing the direct result of some of the incentives and regulatory advancement in the industry. I want to come to the Secretary General of APO, Dr. Umar Farouk. The Africa Energy Bank is a pioneering initiative. But one of the things that plays on my mind is if we're raising money locally and we're investing, capital is risk averse. And the fact that Africa is finding African solutions to an African problem of finance does not make local investors, or any investor for that matter, immune from some of the challenges in the industry. So what specifically will the Africa Energy Bank be doing to overcome the well-known obstacles that hamper investment in the energy sector?
Thank you very much for that question. It's a question that in the last 2 years, people have asked severally. One, to dampen our interest in this project, but we are not going to be discouraged. I believe that Africa needs to first and foremost see energy security as important as national security. By this I mean, today our whole thought about raising funds is that Africa cannot do this on its own. We need to look outside. The governments of these countries have a duty to support government as well as private investors in the Africa Energy Bank. As far as we are concerned in the Africa Energy Bank, we are doing a project that will bring money to those who invest in it, but more importantly, it is going to catapult Africa from where it is today in terms of energy poverty to abundance. A number of, let me say this. If energy is critical to our development socially, economically, and so on, our governments have a responsibility to ensure that they protect the investments that are made in that sector. I don't believe that governments should just hands off and let the market forces play on these matters. If you go to the developed countries of today, their governments do not hands off on matters that they consider critical to their national economies. They subsidize, they protect, they do all that needs to be done. And this is what we want to see on the African continent. We are committed to the development of the Africa Energy Bank. There are challenges, no doubt, but we believe that it will take off and take off well for the continent.
Thank you very much, sir. A round of applause, please, for him. And one of your key collaborators on the Africa Energy Bank, the Afrexim Bank, is represented. Do you see Afrexim as being on a mission to really stepping where other players, global and local, have stepped out? And what is the long-term strategic objective? Afrexim has also done transactions with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in upstream. You've disbursed almost $3 billion as part of a consortium, a syndication to finance upstream oil and gas. What is the long-term play here in terms of sustaining that level of funding for the sector?
Thank you very much. I think the SG has mentioned a lot of our initiative or the reason behind us really wanting to support this. But however, the long-term goal of Afrexim Bank is to ensure we continue to ensure energy resilience amongst Africans, ensure that we continue to rely and source our own funding to support our own development. And as such, that's why we see a lot of investments with both the private sector and the government and the public sector. And so we believe that adaptability is the way forward, and we will continue to support the energy space, regardless of how people are living. We are here and we continue to show our relevance as Afrexim Bank by partnering with various institutions such as Apple, such as an NMPC and other major oil and gas participating states, producing states, and private sector at the same time.
And if I may ask a follow-up question, what do you have to say to those who sometimes raise concerns around the sustainability of some of the funding transactions? Especially because we know, based on research and study, that one of the things developing countries often struggle with is debt sustainability on loans, whether that's from DFIs or private sector funders. How is Afrexim managing or balancing that issue versus the need to actually scale these investments?
Well, in terms of sustainability, we were created by African governments and private sector to try and intervene. So we look at risk from a different standpoint. We look at risk as a Nigerian, we look at the risk profile of the Nigerian economy. Same will apply in other economies. So we're really determined and we are focused on trying to ensure that we look at more bankable transactions, structure them properly to meet the current regulatory framework and look at the environment we're working in. A lot of times people just structure deals looking at plain vanilla structures, but at Afrexim Bank we look at more structured approach, trying to ensure we look at the country in question, the economy in question, and how we can structure to ensure that everybody has a win-win situation, really.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to come now to the Secretary General of OPEC, His Excellency. I think most observers of oil markets view OPEC more as a stabilizing force in global oil markets and not necessarily, at least at first glance, as a catalyst for investment. A lot of the narrative and conversation with OPEC seems now to be focusing more on the investment side. What is driving this shift, and what specific role will OPEC play amongst its members in trying to attract more investment and scale investments across the global energy sector?
Well, that's a brilliant question, but I think let me start by saying that there is no change in our narrative.
Strategy.
OPEC is in the narrative. I think that was the point you mentioned, or the question. There's no shift because we have always been calling and advocating for investing, because OPEC takes a long-term approach to looking at the energy. global energy, future of energy everywhere in the world. You cannot have investments, especially in this business, the oil and gas business for that part, which is a long lead time kind of business. You cannot just invest today and then switch off tomorrow. People in the audience will know this exactly, and the members of the panel here. If you invest today, usually your investment only starts producing like 5, 6, 7 years down the road. You cannot do that without a stability. OPEC for 65 years has been working to provide stability to global oil markets, and by definition that means global energy. Now that affects consumers, not only producing countries, but also consumers. That's why OPEC is also very much engaged now in developing consumer-producer dialogue. We're involved in many fora. We have bilateral dialogues with many consumers, such as India, China, the European Union, and we're working on developing many more because we believe that stability is required for these investments. We take a long-term approach. So there's not really a shift in our narrative. Now, the thing which we can provide is stability. Stability means we work together, making sure that energy is affordable, energy is accessible. Oil, for that part, and specifically now, is accessible to the world. Whenever there's a surplus or a shortage, there is a force that is stabilizing the market in terms of global supply and demand, and that's what we've been doing. So it's important because today, if you just focus on the natural decline rates in production around the world, you're talking at least 4 or 5%. In some places, it's much more, actually. Now, when we say we need to invest in upstream, we need to invest today just to manage what natural decline is, let alone to cater for the additional demand that I highlighted in my remarks, which is much more. And I think, unfortunately, driven by some misguided narratives, or I called them in my remarks wishful thinking, some have led people not only to stop investing, but also to stop investing in places where there's an abundance of natural resources, such as the African continent. And that is impoverishing the continent. It's not allowing its people to benefit and flourish like the rest of the world, which is, in my opinion, unfair and incorrect. And it provides further risks for the future. Because if we don't invest today to catch up with what we are producing, we're not going to be able to catch up with what's going to be required in the future. And let me say this, the world is going to need more energy in the future. All kinds of energy. Renewables, solar, wind, oil, gas, coal. And let me say this, those who have predicted that coal demand would peak back in 2009, 2010, coal demand keeps setting a new record every year, including last year, 2024. The same applies for gasoline demand, saying that it would have peaked. Gasoline demand, yes, despite the electric vehicle penetration and what have you, but gasoline demand is continuously setting new records. So I think it's important for all of us here to really remove illusions. Illusions are dangerous, especially when they are allowing policymakers to make wrong judgments on how to invest or how to prevent investment. And that's what my brothers here from Afrexim and my brother, the Secretary General of APO, are saying, that we need to create investments in Africa to allow people to invest in this continent, which is has a natural abundance of resources.
Thank you very much. And I think it must be said, even members of OPEC, you can see in terms of countries in the Gulf and Middle East are investing both in fossil fuels as well as renewables. It's really a case of a diversified energy mix. And I guess part of what has foiled this narrative, Ambassador Lenkert, I'm going to come to Ambassador Pieter from Belgium, is that the European Union, of which you're a member, several years ago passed the Green Deal. And part of the fallout from that Green Deal is that many European banks, European Investment Bank and development finance institutions, pulled out of funding energy in Africa. Thankfully, we have the likes of the Africa Energy Bank ably going to fill that space. But what message are you sending, or can you send to the EU about the type of just transition that this continent needs to continue to ensure that global capital partners with local capital to end energy poverty on the continent?
Thank you very much. To set the record straight, the European Green Deal is not pulling us out of energy in Africa. It's pulling us out of upstream fossil fuels, new investments in Africa. That's quite another story. So yes, there's lots of potential in energy unlocking, energy development here with European partners, with Belgium on this continent. But when I look at the golden standard for that, then currently I look at Namibia, where Belgium, together with Denmark and Germany, and with a whole host of local Namibian companies, private players, public players, banks, development agencies, has invested in a green hydrogen fueling station for both maritime use and road transport, with locally sourced solar and wind energy. Now, I cannot believe in my right mind that if Namibia can set this up, pull this off, that Nigeria, with its 800 kilometers plus coastline, with its abundant resources, with its large market, with its long maritime tradition, could not do likewise. Now, of course, at the same time, it's obvious that to get, and I'm following the advice also of the former World Bank country director here, you can't industrialize African countries just merely based on renewables. I think we're clear on that. So that's where gas as a transition fuel comes in. But even then, I could still not understand how, in even not so wealthy neighborhoods in a fossil fuels poor country and an LDC like Burundi, that their housewives can have access to solar energy for their cooking needs, whereas we would somehow not push this in a country like Nigeria because we think that gas would somehow also have to fit in there. So I think it's also a matter of not resting on our laurels and really making the leapfrog wherever it is possible. And some other countries in Africa are also showing the way, and sometimes having a long tradition of being fossil fuels only can be a handicap, but one that we'll gladly overcome jointly in the vast array of possible cooperations that we can have. This being said, of course, downstream, Belgian and European companies remain present on the ground in Nigeria, of course, also in fossil fuels. That is also, goes without saying. But when it comes to really future-proofing our relations between Belgium and Nigeria, and I think by extension also that is true for other European countries, yes, we are, I think, aiming a bit higher. Interestingly, I can add just one figure to just illustrate. Belgium is, even within the European cohort, a bit of a special case. We represent no less than 40% of imports into this country from the EU, 40%. And it's not second-hand cars, as you might have expected, perhaps, no. It's all refined oil. 90% is refined oil. So when I talk to Mr. Dangote, to Aliko Dangote, then I tell him that, yes, I mean, the best proxy indicator to see whether your goal of serving the Nigerian market with local oil, locally refined, is going to be a drastic drop in imports from Belgium. Now, of course, I wish for that to be the case, because there's no good case to make for all this oil just to be shipped 1,000 kilometers away and then just coming back refined. So I would wish for Nigeria to do these things locally. But of course, I also would wish then for other things to take over our bilateral trade relations and our investment. I'm confident we can get there, but it's going to be future-proofed, as I say.
Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause for him. I think we expect the import levels, though, to drop over time with the scaling up of the Dangote refinery, because I guess the aspiration here is energy self-sufficiency. I'd like to come to the gas players now, and I will start with His Excellency Mohamed Hamel, Secretary General of GCFR. Gas was described as a destination fuel. Given all these conversations that have happened and taken place, what do you think is the biggest opportunity now globally for gas players to really take center stage, and especially in the context of Nigeria, and position themselves for investment?
Thank you very much. Great to be back to Abuja and participate in this prestigious panel. Let me first say that in the GECF, we fully agree with all the messages that have been presented by my brother Haytham in his keynote speech. We believe that the world will need energy for decades to come. The argument by some, in particular a Paris-based organization, that oil and gas demand will peak before 2030, and that the recommendation that we need to stop investing in oil and gas, for us, it's simply not a serious argument. Let me maybe, since my brother Haytham covered it all, add an addendum about natural gas. We project natural gas demand to increase by 32% globally. Yes, it will decline in the European Union. It has already peaked in 2005 due to their energy policies as well as deindustrialization. So maybe natural gas, we can say, is just a transitional fuel in Europe. But in all other regions, in the US, the demand will continue increasing until the mid-30s, followed by an elongated plateau, in particular due to the demand for dispatchable power in artificial intelligence data centers. But in all other developing countries, natural gas demand will sharply increase, and we see it increasing by 32% globally. And in particular here in Africa, where we see the demand for natural gas doubling by 2050, underpinned, of course, by the population growth. 1 billion additional people in Africa by 2050. 60% of African population is less than 24 years old. It's a huge opportunity, but at the same time creates many challenges. And to solve these challenges and also benefit from the opportunities, energy is key, and natural gas. We see in particular the transition from using traditional biomass to cleaner fuels, in particular LPG. I mean, 70% of demand, 90% is traditional biomass. So the transition from traditional biomass to LPG is really a moral obligation. According to the World Health Organization, 2.3 million people prematurely die due to indoor pollution. We have also, of course, the coal to gas switching, the support of renewables, intermittent renewables-based grids. We have also petrochemicals, as well as fertilizers. 75% of nitrogen-based fertilizers are produced from natural gas. So natural gas is key for energy security. So the demand in Africa is great, but at the same time, we see the resources in Africa really extremely important. 17 trillion cubic meters of proven gas reserves, 8% of the world proven gas reserves. Resources are huge, very important. And at the same time, unconventional gas, shale gas, tight gas. If I give just the example of a country I know very well, my country, Algeria, unconventional is 700 TCF. It's the third world globally. So clearly the resources are here. And this is where we come to investment, because turning these resources into supply, into revenues, we need investment, and investment is a key. And I believe that Nigeria is a clear example of a successful and a smart strategy with regard attracting investment to the oil and gas industry, how to leverage the synergies between the private sector, the independent petroleum producers, and the international oil companies, how to develop capacity building, extremely important to be able to attract investments, at the same time also how to embrace innovative technologies, and I think Nigeria is also an example in that, how to develop infrastructure. I think we have heard His Excellency Minister of Gas mentioning these projects about small LNGs, these huge pipelines also to bring natural gas to the northern parts, other parts of the country. This is extremely successful. And finally, and this is very important, is regional cooperation. And I would like to mention first the cooperation between Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, also the project between Algeria, Niger, and Nigeria for these trans-Saharan gas pipelines. So I think clearly Africa needs natural gas, but at the same time, Africa has the resources and has the capacity to benefit from natural gas in its socio-economic development.
Thank you. Thank you for painting a picture very concisely of the gas market. And I'll come to Dr. Michelle Bola of NLNG. I would say NLNG has actually been a pioneer because one of the very first or largest syndications I ever remember was local banks coming together to fund one of the early trains of the NLNG sector. But also in recent years, we've had a lot of major global NLNG announcements, contracts, long-term contracts signed with countries around the world, Middle East, China, etc. How can Nigeria position to tap into some of these opportunities? And as a CEO in that space, what specifically has gone right for you in order to decide to invest long-term in the gas business here? It means we must be doing something right. So can you share some of your thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolake. I think in the wisdom of Nigerians over 60 years ago, the concept of an LNG business actually started. But it took 30 years to actually get it together to the point where the first investment was made. And I think during that time, lessons were learned. Once we started, and like you said, there was syndication across both local as well as international banks, right from the start. We were rolling out train after train after train, almost back to back. But after train 6, we then had a hiatus of about 15 years where there was no investment until the FID in 2019 of train 7. And I think that was a very bold and courageous move that was made at that time as well. Then, of course, COVID hit. But one of the things that enables the sort of financing that NLNG is able to raise has to do with the actual structure and governance that NLNG has. And it's an interesting one that people generally refer to as the NLNG model. But you have there a private-public partnership, in essence, right, with government holding interest through an NPC, and then the IOCs as shareholders as well. But you have government, though a majority, not holding a controlling interest. And then you have governance that's been put in place that enables real, proper ethics, compliance, and structured the management of the business that investors are able to look at, financiers are able to look at and be attracted to. And I think that the government did a lot, learning from those first 30 years, to put in place the enabling environment to facilitate that to happen. Now, we have gone on from there, of course. So if you look at Train 7, it's roughly $5 billion for Train 7, and another equivalent in the upstream investment to supply the gas that's required for that. Today, as we speak, we're in the market again, and actually we've been overwhelmed by the level of interest that's there. And so it's a great story that NLNG has in that respect. But that's not the story of Nigeria, unfortunately. And so most other investors in Nigeria are challenged. And they're challenged for some of the reasons that have been discussed here. And I think the APO Secretary General talked about energy security has to be seen the same way as national security, and I actually fully agree with that. What is it that we're putting in place that enables smaller scale investments to also take place? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be exporting all of the gas. We also need to address the domestic market. For a long time, NLNG was focused on being the one that brought in the revenue so that the government could then have revenue to do other things within the country. But we've pivoted from there. And so today, we're not just looking at NLNG export, but potentially domestic LNG. We have taken a decision years ago to domesticate all of our LPGs. So it's all going into the domestic market. We are now, through a CSR program, building a road that's going to connect Bonny Island with the mainland that will then enable trucking of LPG. And this is just to open up and deepen that domestic market as far as gas is concerned as well. And so together with all that the government is doing in the downstream sector of the gas business, I think that we have set up an environment that is ripe for investment. However, if you ask me what has gone right, I think from the NLNG perspective, it's really the way that it was set up and the way that it has been run ever since. You know, I'm here for a time and I leave, right? And that's part of the governance. It's not a one-man business that, you know, I'm going to be here for 20 years and, you know. So it's all part of that governance. And because of that, we are then able to do all of the things that we've done. We're also looking at the regional market. So together within the scope of the Train 7 project, we're also building a third jetty that's going to enable us to load small-scale vessels. And these vessels are able to actually do supplies within the coastal regions of Africa. And so that's something that we're very keenly looking forward to doing as well. Now, that's what's right. But I need to also talk about the challenge that we have. And
very briefly, sir, if I may. Thank you.
And the reason is, as we sit here right now, this minute in this hall, I'm only running 2 trains out of 6. And the reason I can only run 2 trains out of 6 today, right now, is because 3 of our gas supply pipelines are down for repairs. What are we repairing? Illegal connections from thieves on gas lines. And it's affected the GTS 1, GTS 2, GTS 4. These are the biggest lines that supply NLNG with gas. So coming back to Dr. Farouk's point, energy security has to be as important as national security. But in addition to that, security of energy has to be the priority today. We know that we've seen improvements in the security situation where oil is concerned. We've actually seen a deterioration where gas is concerned. And so until we're able to protect the lines, provide the security for those investments, we will always underperform. Since the Russia-Ukraine war, I've been approached by dozens of European and other countries looking for LNG, and we've been unable to supply because of this. And so you see what's happening with Qatar and the US. We can't compete.
Thank you very much for talking about the positives, but also a round of applause. And I wanted to give the special advisor an opportunity to respond because we recently had a conversation around the need for Nigeria to be a reliable supplier of LNG and gas, not just to global, local markets, but international markets. But I think the Secretary General of OPEC had a response to something. Did you still want to come in on the response, or we?
It was, thank you. It was just a point, because the word energy transitions was mentioned. I forgot by whom amongst my colleagues here, the panelists. But I think when we talk about energy transitions, I just want to remind that what is really the definition of transition? Honestly, we have to think about it. All we've been doing is adding energy. I cannot think of energy. 40 years ago, the world used 80% fossil fuels in its energy mix. 40 years on, last year, still 80%. The world has been adding, as it grows, energy sources, and that's, I think, the context with which we should use the term energy transition. That's number one. Number two, I really think when we talk about implementing this technology or that source of energy or using this here or there, energy transition, we say in OPEC, it's energy transitions. We add an S at the end to it because we believe that there's no single pathway. Every country has the right to take its own and chart its own pathway to achieving its energy security, reliability, affordability, and the way it should meet its targets on emissions reductions. And let me remind everybody, the Paris Agreement is not about choosing energy sources. The Paris Agreement is not about getting rid of fossil fuels and moving to hydrogen or what have you. The Paris Agreement is about reducing emissions. And that's what we've all committed to. If we can reduce emissions from oil and gas, and we should also adequately invest in countries like Nigeria and Africa, all around the world, to be able to use those technologies that are widely available, such as CCUS, direct air capture, and we should focus on solutions that are immediately available as well, rather than looking at solutions that cost probably $200 a barrel of oil equivalent today.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you for giving us that welcome perspective. So I'd like to come back to you, Special Advisor. Perhaps maybe you can also respond to some of the things that Dr. Mshabila said, but to hear your thoughts on the gas piece, and also just to hear your thoughts on what innovative financing mechanisms is Nigeria pursue. Because 2 years ago, all that was in the news was this NNPC oil deals, but we know there's so much more to funding and scaling the industry. So over to you.
So thank you. To respond to some of the challenges we're seeing in export, or some of the points that Dr. Mshabila highlighted, he's very correct about the reason that NLNG is a model, and it's one that we should replicate for sustainability and the ability to actually attract capital to this sector. When you have clear governance, stable companies that also go through the commercial rigor and the financial rigor to identify markets, make sure that they rank their projects economically, answer to shareholders, that those models work and they attract capital. And across our sector, it is what we should be seeing, not only just on the upstream side and the midstream side, but even in the smaller scale businesses. You really need to do the work of making sure that there's commercial rigor and financial rigor and accountability and all the good points that he made about why the NLNG model works. In terms of some of the worrying trends that we're seeing around security, that remains the challenge that we need to resolve. We've seen some successes in some models that we deployed very early on in the administration, which involved us working with the operators of those assets to really understand the underlying causes of, and make sure that we can design very targeted security interventions. So we don't listen to third-party reports about what's happening on those assets, that we work very closely with the operators of those assets because they know their assets more than anybody else, and they can provide us with data, and then we work very closely with our own security agencies, government security agencies, the NSA's office, to make sure that we're able to secure this critical infrastructure. Because you will not attract capital to any infrastructure project if the record that we have is that you build it and someone's going to come and hack into it and destroy it. It will be very difficult to attract capital. So we need to make sure that we address that problem in a sustainable manner. And also address what's attracting them to those pipelines. It's now a new trend to see attacks on gas pipelines. There are a few issues that we won't discuss here that's driving that we need to address quickly to make sure that we can arrest that. In terms of bankability of demand, that's why that model works. And it's what we also need to scale on the domestic and regional consumption side. I like Secretary General of APO's point that we need to address energy. Is that people, whether you're in the power sector, can people afford to pay for power sector? 60%, over 60% of our gas goes into the domestic goes into the domestic market, goes into the power sector. That power sector is very challenged because we need incomes to grow for residential customers to be able to pay a commercial rate, the market rate for power, and that for that commercial rate to be governed properly within the discos, i.e. they return the capital, sort of almost what you have again with NLNG, proper governance, financial and technical capacity within those discos to remit the cash flows of the value chain so that it's attractive for gas suppliers and for renewables. So we really need to work on making sure that we have, in addition to making sure that what we've done on the upstream side, which is to improve commercial viability of supply, that we really work with regional partners, domestic partners, to build out commercially credit-worthy, bankable offtake markets for the gas that we're trying to supply, whether that's in power, whether that's in gas-based industries that help us diversify our sources of foreign exchange earnings, whether that's in displacing diesel and PMS in transportation. We really need to make sure that that's what happens on that end. And you'll find that capital will flow to that. We've seen, when you say to diversify the sources of capital, again, I think there is a narrative that needs to change, that that capital doesn't go to fossil fuels. That's actually not true if you listen to the Secretary General of OPEC's list of investments that have gone elsewhere. In our work in designing, when the President asked us of investors who are still looking to invest in fossil fuels, provided you meet some of these requirements and you're delivering it in a way that is much more sustainable and reduces emissions. A lot of the DFIs are not really the actual traditional sources of finance for this, for the upstream. They're not. But they are critical to nascent sectors like the renewable sectors that are still not quite commercially viable, where you need longer-term capital.
Thank you very much, Special Advisor. And it's interesting you mentioned that because, and this question I'm throwing open to Afrexim, world's top global investment banks in Europe, in North America, are still investing in fossil fuels. So I think the narrative that somehow there's been a global retrenchment of capital from fossil fuels is not entirely accurate, even though we need to balance it. So one of the things I want to ask you was really around the fact that for gas, for instance, the key characteristic of gas infrastructure is it's long-term. You're funding long-term investments. Ideally, you want to try and fund them in local currency because the receipts are coming from off-takers in local currency. And ideally, you want low interest rates. So in terms of conceiving the Africa Energy Bank, is the bank or the fund going to help operators and borrowers, obligors, meet and tick some of those criteria? I know you may not be able to get into the nitty-gritty of structuring, but can you help us understand a bit what some of the key highlights around the Energy Bank would be? Who would like to go first? Secretary General Apo. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's make it very clear. When we set out to establish the Africa Energy Bank, we set out with a purpose. And that purpose is to make Africa less dependent on foreign financing for the industry. We are not against foreign financing. I've said that several times. But we want to look within first. In APO, we believe that Africa is not that poor. And I've always given a very good example with 2003 to 2008. I worked in OPEC at that time. Oil prices, $28, it was considered too high. Below $22, it was considered too low. And OPEC tried to make sure that the price band is maintained. Ladies and gentlemen, between 2003 and 2008, oil prices rose to nearly $150 per barrel. Every oil-producing country produced more than it was producing by 2008 compared to what it was producing in 2003. Nigeria, this country, produced the highest volume in its history in 2005, 2.5 million barrels of crude. Now, the question is, if oil and gas is central to the survival of the national economy of Nigeria, Algeria, Equatorial Guinea, etc., why didn't we take that windfall to invest in the industry so that we are able to control the financing of the industry, the technology of the industry, and provide the necessary infrastructure? So the point is, we still believe Africa is rich. All we need to do is to prioritize our expenditure. As are we today, Madam, we are waiting for foreign investors, and the monies we get from exporting our oil and gas, we squander it. We have to change our thinking so that we will be independent. We have the capacity to do so.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Mr. Ayo, very briefly, please.
Just to add, I think we've always said we're open to receiving any financing from foreign or from domestic financing. All we require is that the financing gives terms that are favorable to our companies, to our governments, and all of that. And we are willing to work with everybody that brings in the funding and see how we use it to develop our oil and gas space, our energy space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As we're winding up the panel, maybe to the Secretary General of the GCF and Ambassador Pierte, just thinking about the one single in your mind, based on the countries you've worked in? Obviously, each country's legal and regulatory environment is different, but in terms of what your member countries are saying, would really help scale and catalyze long-term investment in industry. What is the single biggest catalyst right now in your mind that will do that? And then to Ambassador Pierte, would the Belgian government, for instance, consider partnering with the Africa Energy Bank? If we say we haven't pulled out totally, is that something under particular circumstances a European government would consider investing in? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And finally, to Dr. Mshebila, I guess it's really thinking about how the NLNG model can be replicated in other parts of the value chain. And please, if you can keep your remarks to 2 minutes each, I'd be very grateful. I'll start with the Secretary General of GCF.
Let me very briefly report to you that last year, the 7th Summit of Heads of State and Government was held in March in Algiers. And I can say that there was consensus and unanimity that, one, natural gas will play a crucial role in the future. Two, it is extremely important to ensure investment in the natural gas sector. Three, that there is really a need for more cooperation between the GCF member countries. Four, the importance of technology. And GCF member countries have agreed to expand their cooperation to the space of technology by establishing the Gas Research Institute, which has been inaugurated last year in Algiers. Finally, of course, there is no one-size-fits-all model. Countries are different in terms of geologic risks, political risks, but at the same time, we do know that this industry, you are absolutely right, capital-intensive, long-term, but it is also cyclical, and therefore it is also important to ensure that the mitigation mechanisms to ensure that there are no windfall profits depending on where we are in the cycle, because this will ensure that these contracts are going to be with us for a long term. So I think this is very important, transparency and balance in the contract.
Thank you very much, sir. Down the gauntlet with that question. Hopefully I didn't put you on the spot too much, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
No, you don't put me on the spot, and I mean, it's lineup of the sponsors. When I look at the lineup of the speakers at the beginning of this conference, I was happy to hear that in the speech by Mr. President, there was some allocation made for some attention paid to renewables. Otherwise, I'd be having to look through a magnifying glass to find it elsewhere. So this being said, thank you, Mr. President, for having thought about renewables. Sorry if I have to be the bearer of some bad news for some, but no, there is no walking back. There is now a new industrial clean deal by the EU that comes to adjust the Green Deal. It is mainly aiming at reducing red tape but neutral by 2050. And just as Earth sets us a deadline as a global community, probably even by 2040. So we'll already be late. And so it may be fashionable in some circles to wish that away, but the EU is steadfast. And I mean, if you look at Belgium, we nowadays, I heard speaking about energy mixes. Now if we speak about electricity generation, now our mix there is 75% non-fossil fuel by now. The only fossil part we have in energy, in electricity generation is gas, and the rapidly rising parts are wind and solar. We are now the world's fifth biggest larger producer of offshore wind energy with just a shoreline of 55 kilometers. So it shows that if there is political will, even with few resources, you can achieve a lot. And you can, of course, say that for a developed country, an industrialized country like Belgium, it's easy, of course, to mobilize finance and all of that. But also, if you think of it, I mean, the Global South, which, by the way, since 2012, as a whole, has been a similar volume of historic emissions as the Global North. Let us not forget that. Most people in my own country don't even know that figure. So it means the Global South is now a bigger emitter historically in the Global North. not per capita and so on, and it's of course mostly because of China and India. But there are also very diversified responsibilities in there. But it's not so much the responsibilities that it is about for me. It's about the enormous opportunities. Sustainable will only always be relatively sustainable whenever we're talking about progress made in how we explore and how we exploit fossil fuel resources. There is the bigger leap. And we have to keep our focus also on that bigger leap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Pierte. Dr. Mshabela, please, very briefly.
So the so-called NLNG model rests on a couple of key elements. I could spend the whole day talking about them, but it's primarily government understanding its role and accepting it and living by it. It's about government playing that enabling role that it needs to do. And it's then about management of the business itself, right? So let me just say, government, the role of government it will be different depending on which element of the industry you're in. In the upstream, with where Nigeria is today, you would naturally expect a bigger role for government. In the midstream, perhaps less, and probably none in the downstream. Ultimately, in mature industries, around the world, government should keep its role to regulation. Now, where you do need to have public-private sector partnerships, then it has to be in an arrangement where you can actually minimize interference and you can allow strong governance to be entrenched and sustained over time. That model, however, and that's also why I said financing, for example, will be very different for those kind of players than it might be for an NLNG or for the upstream. In that sector, the likes of the Africa Energy Bank are probably best suited. The traditional financing models around the world will not work and have not worked, for most of our small industries. And so you need a different mindset and very innovative approaches to that. Like you said, that concept, that understanding that, for example, the revenues are in Naira, and can the loans also be in Naira? That sort of thinking has to be brought to play to ensure that all the sectors are actually able to attract investment and to grow.
Thank you, very brilliantly put. Between the two Secretary Generals, APO and OPEC, we have 2 minutes. It's been approved that you can have the last word. So who would like to go first, very briefly? The Secretary General of APO, Dr. Farouk.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment on you asked a question. Your question to the ambassador, I think everybody assumes that Africa Energy Bank is open to everybody. No.
It's not? Okay.
No, seriously. For you to become an investor in Africa Energy Bank, you must share our vision that the oil and gas industry has a future. We don't want to bring investors that will make it impossible for us to pursue the objectives for which we set up the Africa Energy Bank. If countries or financiers come from outside with a lot of money because they have a lot of dollars, they will come and make it impossible for us to move the way we want. See what's happening in the Africa Development Bank. There are many things that we are not against them, but don't take for granted that we are ready to accept any finances.
Thank you, Secretary General. I guess I was just assuming that leopards can change their spots, but perhaps not. I'll leave the last word to the Secretary General of OPEC.
Yeah, thank you. I think also referring, I didn't want to touch this area, but since the Honorable Ambassador spoke about historical emissions, I think it's important to highlight the facts. And I say here the facts. In the Paris Agreement, there is the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. Now, I don't need to lecture anybody on historical emissions. You can all go to Google search and find them. But it's definitely not Africa. It's definitely not OPEC that has caused the highest global historical emissions.
Thank you.
That's number one. Number two, I think, is when we get so fixated on a certain source of energy, be it renewables, be it oil, be it gas. I think we have to look at all sources of energy. And the message we at OPEC are saying is very clear. The world will need all sources of energy. Let me give you a simple statistic to walk away with. Since we're here in Nigeria, in Abuja today, from now to 2030, which is less than 6 years from today, 5 years, if my maths is okay, we're talking about UN statistics, this is not OPEC statistics, showing nearly 600 million people moving into new cities all around the world, from now to 2030. Now, since we're in Nigeria, let's put this number into context. The population of Nigeria is what? Close to 200 million, from 200 and something? So we're talking about 3 new Nigerias, the size, cities, the size of 3 new Nigerias from now to 2030. Can we just imagine the sheer magnitude of this challenge, the daunting size of this challenge and task to provide for reliable, and I use the word reliable, not intermittent, reliable sources of energy, affordable sources of energy, accessible sources of energy that will enable the development of Nigeria and countries like Nigeria all around the world. So I don't think we should get fixated about green hydrogen or blue hydrogen. It's hydrogen at the end of the day. Honestly.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. I guess whatever the color of hydrogen, we need to industrialize the continent and we need to tackle energy access and energy poverty. Well, Secretary General of OPEC, Secretary General of APO, Secretary General of the GCF, Mrs. Olu Verheijen, Special Advisor to the President on Nigeria, Dr. Omar Farouk, His Excellency Mohammed Hamel, Professor Benedict Orama, ably represented by Mr. Ayo, and Dr. Philip Imshelbila, as well as my dear Ambassador Pieter Linknick. Thank you so much for sharing your insights in such a short space of time and doing justice to it. Thank you.
Just give me a second. Let's give you our plaques of appreciation. PAMSEC, sir, please, if you can come and help us present these plaques to them real quick. Let's begin with His Excellency Haitham Al-Gais. Thank you. Whether it's red, whether it's blue, it's hydrogen. Let's use it. Please, to the middle. Let's use it. And next will be Dr. Omar Farouk. Don't think that we will take the money because you're bringing it to. You have to believe in our dreams. Then we will take the money so we can work together as partners in progress. Thank you so much. Thank you. Your Excellency, Engineer Hamel, thank you so much for finding time to give us the perspective. Yes, Professor Orama, thank you so much. Dr. Michelle Bila, we need at least 2 more NLNGs for the money to be big. For the money to be big and the dumb gas to increase. Thank you so much. Ambassador, don't worry, we'll have renewables, but we'll industrialize. We're with you, we know. We're with you, we'll industrialize. Don't worry. For SA, thank you. Rolake, you do a fantastic job always. Let's give them a round of applause one more time. And now for our moderator, sir. For our moderator. Yes, sir. Thank you. Dr. James Shindi, where are you? Can you just meet us on stage real quick for a family photo? Is he in the hall? Dr. James Shindi is not in the hall. Okay, please, family photo. Family photo with this panel. Family photo. Yes, I was looking for you. Please go ahead. Let's give them a resounding applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. So, we have just one more panel, the ministers' panel. We beg your indulgence to work with us. There are just 5 people on that panel. We'll quickly take that panel and knock it off in about dinner. Those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you. So, anyways, but thank you. We do not take your cooperation for granted, honestly. We do not. We need to turn this hall around. You know, at the presidential villa, right? When we have the opening ceremony in one half of the hall, the other half, if you recall, will be setting up for the dinner. So when we are done with the opening ceremony and this panel session, the other half is then collapsed and meshed together. But we don't have that luxury here. So let's just do this other panel. Allow them take their seat in the audience. Don't bother coming to them for networking now. You will do that later. As I said, it's a 40-minute session we're about to start. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you. We do not take it for granted. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Permanent Secretary. Thank you. Thank you. So let us get into the business of this next session. Let us get into the business. 40 minutes and we are done. Thank you. First off, let me welcome again on stage, this time as a panelist, the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas, the Right Honorable Obogeme Ekperikpe. A round of applause. Please allow the panelists sit down. Allow them sit down, please. Allow them sit down. You can interact with them later. Please allow them sit down. 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 Please. Yes, sir. Please allow them sit down, allow them sit down, allow them sit down. Let's welcome the distinguished Senator Heineken Lokobri, Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources. Or a round of applause, please. Thank you so much for your cooperation. We do not take it for granted. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let us welcome former OPEC chairman, former Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources and the Economy of Equatorial Guinea, and now Chairman, Central African Pipeline Systems, CABS, His Excellency Gabriel Obiang Lima. Your Excellency, you're welcome. Please, let's allow our dignitaries sit down. Thank you. We'll network with them later. We promise you. Let's allow them sit down for now. Please, sir. In the middle there, sir. Yes, sir. The Chief of Staff to the Minister of State of Energy and Mineral and Mines and Renewable of Algeria is on our panel. Let's welcome Mr. Mohammed Nassim Halal. Mr. Halal, you're welcome. Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Halal. Thank you. Okay, to drive the conversation for us, I'd like to welcome the General Manager, Government, JV and External Relations at Heritage Energy Resources, Mr. Adeshola Adebawo. You are welcome. Please, a round of applause. Oh, what a great audience we have at NIES 2025. Please give yourselves a round of applause. You are wonderful. You are wonderful. Where's the President's representative? I'm nominating for, oh, she's gone. I wanted to nominate you for national honors, MFRO and all the. Thank you so much. After the panel. Enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Richmond. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, welcome to this session. We have agreed to make these 40 minutes, and so I'm going to need the cooperation of the panelists, distinguished panelists. Originally, we were going to be 8. It was going to be more robust, but we'll take two minutes for each question, and I'd like to crave your indulgence to work with me within those 2 minutes. And also, we had a longer number of questions, but we'll reduce them because of the brevity of time so that we can have functional conversation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa's energy landscape presents both immense opportunities and significant challenges. The continent holds vast reserves of oil and gas alongside burgeoning potentials for renewable energy sources. However, thank you. Access to reliable and affordable energy remains a major hurdle for many African nations. This hinders economic development and impacts on the quality of life. To attract global investment is crucial to the unlocking of this potential. This requires some strategic framework, policy framework, stable regulatory environment, and innovative financial mechanisms, and those will form the fulcrum of our conversation this afternoon. This session, therefore, this roundtable provides a platform for us to discuss these crucial issues and forge a pathway forward for sustainable energy development across the continent. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start with you, Honorable Minister for Petroleum for Gas. Honorable Epo. Nigeria possesses Africa's largest natural gas reserve at over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas. That's about 3% of the global number. However, we continue to have infrastructural development challenges. My question, Your Excellency, is that what are the specific time-bound policy measures that your ministry will be implementing or are currently implementing to attract large-scale investment in gas infrastructure in particular, and to address issues like regulatory approvals, fiscal incentive, and risk mitigations for those who might like to invest in the economy? Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the organizers, and I congratulate the panelists that are here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, like you have said, Nigeria holds up to 209 trillion cubic feet of gas in their reserve. How do we take advantage of this? The move has been the inauguration of a Decade of Gas initiative, where you have a collective of government officials and the private sector involved in it, coming together to chart a new course on how to take advantage, being a progressive drive in that direction. And today, I can confidently tell you that development of projects like AKK, OB3, and other practical projects like that, and FID in some gas-related area has been sponsored by Decade of Gas initiative to drive the sector. This has been an encouraging aspect of it. Then on the policy aspect of it, as so many speakers have mentioned in the course of our interaction here, we've talked about the policy clarity that Mr. President has pushed out some executive orders to encourage investment in the gas sector. This is just to drive the gas agenda of Mr. President in combating global climate change, mitigating global climate change, and to key into the global energy transition. Beyond that, we have the private sector that are critically involved in it. So in our country, Mr. President has talked about CNG, LPG, and LNG. These are approaches. It will provide a cleaner environment, and it is safer, and it is cheaper. So I would like to stop at that point in time right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. A round of applause is in order, if you may. Thank you. I'll come to you, Your Excellency, Honorable Lopobri, Minister of Petroleum Resources for Oil. Now, you are very vehement around your position that energy transition is in phases that will focus on energy security, energy accessibility ahead of transitioning. But some would argue that pursuing this dream, in the last couple of years, investment in the oil sector has been low. Considering the potential that you have and the pursuit of government to develop hydrocarbon in the oil sector, particularly. So, in your view, what are the concrete strategies that government is deploying to revitalize investment in the sector?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe that, if you follow what we got out from the last panel, you agree with me that no matter, the situation has been in Nigeria, investment in fossil fuel has slowed down. As you and I know, in the last 12 years, there was no investment in the oil and gas sector, not because of transition alone, but because even the environment wasn't actually, very conducive for investors to come in. So when this government came, we tried to rejig, our fiscal, policy regime to be globally competitive. When this government came, you recall that we also have, a stable regulatory framework. Following the PIA, there's now stability of legal framework. But, ultimately, the world, some part of the world, the global north sees this issue of global energy transition in a different way from the way it was seen in the Paris Agreement. You recall, when the OPEC Secretary General was saying that the Paris Agreement has to do with, reducing emissions, not abandoning any form of energy source. But it has been mistaken, to be, something else. You recall that sometime last year, some members of the US Congress even wrote to the International Energy Agency saying that you have abandoned your core mandate of energy security, energy availability, energy affordability, and then energy, accessibility, the trilemma of affordability, availability and accessibility to, the issue of energy transition. What we are doing now is to, get our investment climate, global Nigeria to invest. Nobody should have any reason not to come to Nigeria to come and invest. You will agree with me that in the last panel, part of what we saw was that investment is forcibly taking place in other continents, but it's very slow in Africa because those in the global north have decided to pressure Africa to abandon oil and gas investment, abandon fossil fuel for renewables. They're asking us to buy renewable energy from them. Where are we going to get the money to buy the renewable energy from them? And our contention has been that, look, we have substantial investment in oil and gas, allow us to raise the funding that is needed, to be able to expand our investment, raise the money to finance our energy mix. The point I'm making here is that we have done what government ordinarily should do. Basically, get the best regulatory environment, get the best fiscal environment, and then, create a platform for investors, to come and invest and then make, huge returns, on investment. I think that this government has done well. That is why you have seen production increasing. When I came, we were doing 1 million barrels. Today we're doing 1.8. There's tremendous improvement. You can also hear today that investments have started coming in. The Bonga North $5 billion investment is coming. More investments are in the pipeline. So investments are coming. But what is important is that we have to take our own destiny in our own hands. It is not true that any country that is contributing, significantly to global emissions is slowing down. Between USA and China, I'm told they contribute about 55%. But as of today, nobody is talking about reducing emissions. Even the factories where they manufacture the electric cars, they're using either coal or fossil fuel. So there's no deliberate, effort by those who are contributing 97% of emissions in the world to reduce emissions, which is the fulcrum of the Paris Agreement. So to conclude, I'm saying that Nigeria is doing what is expected of a responsible government to do. Get the best fiscal environment, get the best investments in the environment for investors to come in. And I think that and more investment will come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So there's a little bit of, we moved around the members of the panel, so I'm a little bit confused as to who I'm speaking with. You're the Minister of Petroleum and Energy for Côte d'Ivoire, sir?
Well, first of all, I'm not a minister anymore,
Right.
but I'm a chairman. No, I would like, first of all, to give my appreciation to the organizers, to His Excellency the Minister of Petroleum, the Minister of Gas, for allowing us to come here. I think some of you and a lot of you have known me as former Minister of Petroleum, former Minister of Planning and Diversification, and at this moment, I'm the Chairman President of another initiative started by His Excellency Dr. Omar Inapo that very few people know. He's finishing his tenure this year, but everybody knows him more for the Energy Bank, but he's less known about the Central Africa pipeline system that he has been responsible to start. Now, I want to explain a little bit my new role that has been something that Dr. Oman is leaving me behind with it. It's really answering something that this morning in the panel we were all discussing. I do remember Dr. Oman said that we clearly are having challenges for finances for hydrocarbons. We did hear the NMPC mentioning the difficulty between the connection between hydrocarbons and mining. And we are coming to the same conclusion. They are sending us a message. They are saying that we need to abandon the hydrocarbons. So the Central Africa pipeline system is really to answer that. If one day they come to us and they say, we do not want your hydrocarbon anymore, mainly because the war of Russia and Ukraine is ending, what are we going to do? The answer is that rather than complain, rather than scream, rather than argue in panels like this, we create our own market. And this is exactly what countries in Central Africa, from Equatorial Guinea, Cameroon, Gabon, Chad, Central Africa has been deciding to do. The aim is very simple. And again, and this is what I explained to the venues that I go. The numbers do not lie. One single country in Europe, France, have a total of 38,000 kilometers of pipeline, gas and oil. Nigeria, 68 million. Those three countries are 500 million. This is why France is more competitive industrial-wise than Nigeria, Egypt, in this case, and Pakistan. So we are in a Central African countries, like everybody knows, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Congo, limited on population, but producing oil and gas. But next to us, we have another countries, Cameroon, Chad, and even DRC. They are rich in minerals. What is necessary for the energy transition is to be able to transform that minerals. And all of us are doing the same thing. We are exploiting our resources, sending it to maybe to the Middle East, to America, to Japan. And what are they doing? They're buying our own resources to transform the minerals. So the objective is very simple. Rather than keep sending our resources cheap outside and having to buy more expensive, is how to be able to do clearly what they have been doing. And if one day they say they do not want the Nigerian oil anymore or the Nigerian gas, I will be able to say, listen, take your oil and gas. So again, this is the new mission that we are working. Just to give you some feedback what we already have done. We have already agreed by the head of state of all those 7 countries that the concept idea have been approved. We have already achieved and concluded the pre-FEED. At this moment, we are doing the FEED and the environmental study that we will conclude this year. We have been approved by Apple and at the same time by the CEMAC. That definitely is an integrated project. And hopefully, by the end of this year, we will be able to present the vehicle, both for regulatory body, but also a private body, on how we are going to be doing this project. Now, this is not something that in Central Africa we believe that is an invention of us. Countries like in the West Africa pipeline have done it, and WAPO. We have, even in Europe, as very few people know, Europe have a central European pipeline system. That's why you don't see trucks going back and forth from France to Switzerland, to the rest. They have a pipeline already done it, and they're already doing it. So when they scream that you should not do a pipeline in Uganda, you should not do a pipeline in West Africa, but you already have it. Look at the United States. You go from Texas, you can pipeline all the way to Canada, or you can go to China, Bow Bay, all the way. So that has been the solution to be able to create the industrialization. So again, I want to thank the minister and the Minister of Oil and the Minister of Gas, because for some people who thought that they will never see me again because I'm not Minister of Oil, I'm sorry to say that you keep seeing me, because I'll keep coming here and telling you that if somebody in Europe or in America, they say they don't want your oil anymore, we will take it from you and your gas. Okay? Thank you.
It's quite exciting to see how much pride we have in developing our resources. And it's also interesting to see how much stride has been made in Equatorial Guinea in the past year. I'm coming over to Algeria. Mr. Mohamed Nassim, right? Algeria has a track record of successful attraction of foreign direct investment. It's an area where your rest of Africa can learn from the Algerian experience?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. First of all, please allow me to express our deepest thanks to Their Excellency Minister Honorable Lokpo Biri and His Excellency Mr. Ekpo for their kind invitation, and also congratulations from our coming to Nigeria. Please allow me to share some of the insights that we have thought can be useful. In fact, we can summarize in some factors. The first one is related to Algeria's nationalization of its hydrocarbon resources in the 70s and the establishment of a national oil company, Sonatrach. This has been cornerstone for the energy sector in Algeria because of Sonatrach technical expertise. And this technical expertise has enabled discussion and ease of discussion with foreign investors and development and the partnership of win-win beneficial partnership with foreign investors. And also, this has also allowed foreign investors to rely on Sonatrach know-how, and Sonatrach also ability to navigate the local administration and local laws to help foreign investors build this reliability as a partner. The second is recognition that we need to constantly adapting the regulation to accommodate international investors, ensuring that terms are favorable, that they are competitive and mutually beneficial for the investor and for the country. Reform efforts such as the revision of hydrocarbon law in 2019 improved fiscal terms, simplified administrative processes, and introduced attractive incentives for foreign investors, especially in unconventional resources, in small fields and underexplored areas. Third factor is leveraging on high potential, because with high potential field and resources like the Ahmed and Burgeoning basins, investors have seen, major players have seen the interest and to present and to invest in Algeria because of this. And this underscores the lesson that showcased in geographic terms. Furthermore, there is another factor, which is the government's commitment to stability, both politically and economically, coupled with strategic location. As you know, Algeria is serving as a gateway to Europe via pipelines and LNG terminals through vast established infrastructure, making Algeria a reliable investment destination. This reduces operational risks for investors and highlights the importance of a secure investment climate.
Thank you very much. Can we put our hands together? You know, it's quite interesting, government's commitment to security of investment and providing incentives. These are great efforts, and they are not uncommon. They're very interesting directions for countries in Africa to focus in terms of leveraging on the experience that Algeria had. Honorable Minister for Gas, I'm coming to you. Because of our time, we'll just take this as the last round, and then you make your final thoughts. Now, government declared a decade of gas. And the very fact that there's an entire ministry created for the management of that process indicates the energy and prioritization of government for gas. So now, it's also seen as a transition fuel. So how does Nigeria envision its role in the global gas market? And what steps are being taken to position this country as a competitive LNG hub for Africa?
All right, thank you very much. Though I took part of the answer to that of the question in the first answer. Yeah, Nigeria, as you know, is a gas hub and is a gas nation that we have taken advantage of it under the present administration to create the Ministry of Petroleum Resources Gas, to really take advantage of it and harness it. Through the decade of gas, we have repositioned Nigeria in such a way that we operate gas pipelines that take gas from Nigeria to the West African sub-region, and we are engaging with other countries within Africa to make sure we take advantage of the natural gas that is endowed in our country, Nigeria. Within the country, we are equally encouraging the private sector to de-risk them that are engaged in it, because we need the penetration of natural gas in our country in the form of LPG, CNG, and LNG for power generation, transportation, the domestic usage. And in this aspect of it, I am happy to say that under my watch as the chairman of NDGIF, we have released about 1 to 2 billion to investors in that sector to actually drive the gas agenda of Mr. President, thereby positioning Nigeria as a hub for the country and outside the country. Like the man from Equatorial Guinea, about a few months ago, we were in Equatorial Guinea to sign gas pipe agreement between Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, positioning Nigeria as a hub to supply gas to Equatorial Guinea. That, and then the last month I was in Algeria on the same mission to construct a gas pipeline, and we have some agreement that will take gas to Algeria, from there to EU. And like the one that I mentioned earlier, the West African gas pipeline, right now we have Togo, Benin, Nigeria, and Ghana embarking on it. We are supplying gas to that area. So with the enhancement of Decade of Gas, we are encouraging investors with the executive orders of Mr. President to come and invest in the gas sector in Nigeria, so that we will be able to supply the needs of the continent and beyond the continent. So Nigeria is doing everything possible under the present administration to put Nigeria as a hub. But on the issue of global energy transition, what we are addressing is it should be inclusive. And of course, while addressing this global energy transition, we should take into consideration the fact that we lack power in our country, and there are certain things that need to be done. They should, I heard the Secretary General of Apple that he doesn't want people who do not believe in the agenda of the African Energy Bank to come and invest. Yes, but there are so many other countries with big pockets that are still doing the drilling, that, like my oil minister will say. Some countries that I say we should not do it, they are drilling. We need them to come and invest in our country so that we take advantage of the vast natural gas resources to develop our country while thinking about the decarbonization program. We should equate this with the goals of the industrialization of Nigeria and growing our own economy. So we are really interested, and we are really positioned for that, and the President is very resolute about gas development in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you. Minister Lopobri, I'm coming to you. The energy transition in reality is not going to go away. And this conversation is going to continue for a while. Now, my question is, renewables, how much of a threat, in your view, do you think that is to the Nigerian oil and gas industry? And in your view, how do we ensure the longevity of our industry in the face of the aggressive energy transitions from the global north?
Thank you. For me, the only threat, we have from those who are campaigning for energy transition, telling us to abandon, exploration, in fossil fuel. It's a denial of funding. I'll give an example. No country is slowing down. USA today is the highest producer of oil and gas. Right. And they are also among the, biggest contributors to global emissions. They're not slowing down. In fact, with Trump's emergence, Trump has now said, drill, baby, drill. It's going to expand. And so certainly they are going to, be responsible for more emissions without necessarily bothering about, climate change. But banks in America, financiers in America may not be willing to come and finance the oil sector in Nigeria. They are funding. If you go to Norway, you are aware that, UK gave about 100 licenses in 2023 for new exploration in the North Sea. But UK banks may not be willing to fund oil and gas investment in Africa, because what they are expecting is for us to abandon, our traditional source of energy, which is oil and gas, and then come and buy renewables from them. And we have always told them that we need the money. We're not against the energy mix, but we are well endowed with oil and gas. We've also made substantial investments as a continent, side by side with renewables. So for me, the only threat from the global north is denial of funding. And that is why, Apple, together with Afreximbank, decided to come up with this initiative to say, look, let's have African Energy Bank that will be able to, bridge that gap of funding. If funding is available, I can assure you that every barrel you produce here has a market in Africa. If we decide not to export any barrel we produce in Africa outside the continent, we have enough market for what we produce in Africa. You will agree with me that, look, in Africa today, bulk of the refined products we use come from outside the continent. Countries that are producing refined products for Nigeria and for, Africa are way, way off the continent of Africa. So if today, the, rest of the world believes that, okay, we are not going to, buy our crude, just like what my colleague here said, we can very well make Nigeria or West Africa a refining hub and satisfy the energy needs of, the entire African continent. The summary is this. This is basically geopolitics. And the last time in Davos, I had 3 Americans in a panel with me, and they said, look, America may not slow down in these rhetorics of energy transition, whereas they are not doing anything. They are not slowing down on the emissions. They will also not give you money to fund your energy investments. So the advice or the opinion of those 3 guys who are Americans in the panel was that we should look towards Middle East and Africa to be able to raise funding to finance our energy investments, in Africa. So the only threat I have is funding. And once Afreximbank and Apple are able to, conclude what we're already doing for the bank, African Energy Bank, to take over, I believe that will be the good foundation. Let me also tell you that this bank will be a very strong bank. It's one of the biggest things that has happened to Africa. The last time I was in Cape Town, I had the privilege of talking with Professor Rama, and he said, look, they want to see the entire oil and gas portfolio from Afreximbank to the African Energy Bank, so that they would dwell on some other things. That alone, from the records, is over $13 billion.
Right.
And more people are willing to invest. Just like what the OPEC Secretary General said, look, the world will need every source of energy. And no source of energy historically has been abandoned. So fossil fuel cannot be abandoned completely. And we have, as far as I'm concerned, already substantial investments. And we are saying that every available well now should be used. We should explore every available well. And that is why I have told the NNPC, I have told those in the industry that, look, those people who have licenses as souvenirs, who are not using them, please, it's of no value to you. Just surrender them so that we can give it to those who have money to be able to, develop them. Otherwise, it's of no value to anybody. If I have this paper, this file as a marginal field license, what value is it to me? Of no value. Oil and gas has value when you bring it from the ground to the market. And the only way you can bring it from the ground to the market is by sustainable investment from, the capital that we do not have as of today. And that is why we came with this idea as ministers in Africa to come up with this African Energy Bank, and I think that will be a game changer for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm coming to Equatorial Guinea real quick. Honorable Minister talked about funding, financing. You mentioned a lot of strides achieved in Equatorial Guinea in the last couple of years. So can you share with us some of the funding mechanisms that that has helped the industry in Equatorial Guinea to advance significantly?
Okay, I will answer your question, but I'm not in charge of that department anymore. But I think I could be able to give you some information that very few people are aware. The majority of the projects that we did in Equatorial Guinea, one of the critical things is the off-taker. And everybody has been always thinking that the banks have been financing projects in Equatorial Guinea. And this is, I know, my experience, that's why I can speak on it. The majority has been because of off-takers. And these off-takers were the first thing that we did before we developed the field. So that is as much as I want to talk about Equatorial Guinea. I want to go back into what I'm doing right now about the Central Africa pipeline because it has a correlation. Now, because people will say, Excellency Gabriel, that's not going to work. They already did the West Africa pipeline. Who is going to pay it? If everybody do the numbers and the evaluation, the majority of the mining companies in Central Africa and Africa, 50% of their budget is for energy. All of them have to buy generators, have to buy the diesels, and very few of them actually can use the gas. So all those big mining companies who actually have big mining activities in Nigeria, in Central Africa, in Chad, in Cameroon, 50% of the budget goes into power. Now, one of the things that we have done is that we have been saying is get those in the table to be able to build this project. Now, why we believe that this is going to be successful? For one simple reason that we keep talking all the time. There is two transitions that is happening. The energy transition and the technology transition. The energy transition, they're talking about electric cars. I think we're going to take a while until electric cars start working in our roads. So they need the batteries. So all that battery need the minerals. Of course, you know where the minerals are coming. This is not the minerals that they have there. So they are coming minerals, and that minerals, unfortunately, we cannot transform it. I mean, you can talk with anybody in Europe. Nobody's going to fuel or provide energy to an aluminum plant or a power plant with solar or either with wind. They need fossil fuel. They do it in Abu Dhabi. They do it in United States, in the rest. So we need the power. But the other one that is very important, and I think it's very important to remember that our biggest problem, by 2050, the continent of Africa, it will be the continent with the highest population in this earth. And those youth need to work. And to be able to work, you need to work in the energy transition and the technology transition. And what do you need in the technology transition? We keep talking all the time. The artificial intelligence. What is the key things that the artificial intelligence needs? It's not the computer. It's not the software. It's the power. This is the critical thing that even Microsoft and the rest are talking about, buying nuclear plants. So where are the continent and even the area where we already have the resource? The oil and the gas is us. We could transform our entire industry just to be able to build database to be able to manage all this artificial intelligence. So rather than having it in California or even in the Middle East, they could come here to the Gulf of Guinea, to Nigeria. We have enough power that we are born in Equatorial Guinea too. But the critical thing is that we need to create our market. And to create a market, we need to do it like they did it, like Europe did it, like America did it. And I'm very confident in this because I have been working with former ministers, with current ministers. That is not complicated. Nigeria have done it. Unfortunately, I have to say it, I'm not a minister in Nigeria, but I think all those, I would say, problems with the illegal destruction of the pipelines, both for oil and for gas, are the ones creating the problem for the industrialization of Nigeria. Because if all that pipelines that Nigeria already have were working properly, we wouldn't need to be trucking everywhere in Nigeria. We wouldn't be having accidents all the time. But the pipelines have not been working. So if a big country like Nigeria had been able to do pipelines, little Central Africa is smaller than Nigeria. We believe that actually we can do it. You have countries like Cameroon, who is supplying LPG and gas from Douala all the way to Central Africa. They are trucking 48 trucks a day. It takes them 4 days to be able to send gas to Chad. And I can't tell you how many accidents they're having. And we're talking about 200 or 300 kilometers. This is nothing. So again, what I am focusing here to be able to focus everybody is that the problem is not the gas. The problem is not the gas. The problem is the infrastructure. We need to build pipelines. It's very simple. Anybody else who is against pipeline, I think is really against Africa. We need to build as many pipelines as possible, so we don't need any trucks coming from Lagos or Port Harcourt coming all the way to Abuja, other places. This will be all that. The roads should be only for cars and electric cars, of course. If we do that, that's really our solution. So again, my role here is to work first for Central Africa. Hopefully in the future we can connect to Nigeria. But clearly the solution is, let's look for who actually need the resources. And this is why I keep insisting. If one day they say they don't want oil in the Middle East, in Russia, we could say that we have a market that we can take all the oil, all the gas, and I can guarantee you every single mining company, every single software company who is actually doing artificial intelligence, they will come to us, they will build the power plants here, they will get all the computers, because what they need is power. And we already have enough hydrocarbon and reserve for that. So again, this is again to explain you our role, what we want to do. And then after 2-3 years, call them back and ask them if they don't want the oil and gas in Nigeria, and then we'll tell you what is going to happen.
They'll tell you what they think. Thank you so much. I see that Richmond is standing right behind me, so we'll take the last comment. Coming to you, Mr. Nassim. Talking about transnational pipelines, let's talk about cross-national collaboration in Africa. To make our position function and succeed as a global region, we need to connect and collaborate across the length and breadth of Africa. So from the standpoint of the government of Algeria, what are the key policy framework you think are necessary for strengthening the cooperation among nations in Africa to deliver on the vision of developing hydrocarbon here?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Algeria is fostering energy partnerships with other African nations by many policy frameworks that prioritize regional cooperation, as you mentioned, infrastructure development, very important, and capability building, which is essential. These efforts aim to unlock the potential of African collective energy landscape. One of the projects is the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, which is a prime example how we are fostering deeper energy collaboration with our neighbor countries. And this pipeline will link Nigeria to markets in Europe via Niger and Algeria, promises to integrate West African supplies into broader African and European energy markets. Second, we have bilateral agreements also that we are undertaking with many countries like Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, to share experience and to on the hydrocarbons, electricity, and renewables. We have also, we work on multilateral agreements, like our work that we do in the APO, and I highlight here the work that is ongoing between APO NOCs to work on common projects, and also on capability buildings. And also on capability buildings, we are also work from academia and institutions like the Algerian Petroleum Institute to train professionals, energy professionals, to help unlock this potential in our countries.
Excellent. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the panelists. I would also like to appreciate you for your patience. We wish we had more time to take more robust conversations, but panelists, distinguished gentlemen, Your Excellencies, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just give me two minutes. Just sit, give me 2 minutes. Okay, just quick announcement. Now, this, as I said, is going to be the very end of the sessions here. Once we are done, kindly allow the VIPs proceed to the VIP room, and then the refreshment for delegates are served at the foyer of this Congress Hall, just to my right. Again, I would appeal greatly that you move every networking out of this Congress Hall, because we need to flip it for the dinner. The exhibitors are still at the Abuja Continental Hotel. The exhibitions are on till 6. You can go visit them. You can go to that place. You have all the time this evening to do your networking and chit-chatting around that axis and around the foyer of this facility. Tomorrow morning, the panelists for tomorrow morning have assured me that they will be at the Abuja Continental bright and early. So 9 a.m. is our start time tomorrow. We beg you, please be on time so that we would be able to release you as well on time to do other things for the rest of the day. See you tomorrow at 9. See you this evening at 7 here at the Congress or for the dinner. But hold on, let's say thank you to them with their plaques. Let's invite Mr. Austin Olorun-Shola, sir, please. Can help us. Let's give Mr. Austin a round of applause, the chairman of Energy Institute Nigeria. He would do us the honors of presenting these plaques to them. He would do us the honor of presenting the plaques to them. Let's allow Mr. Olorun-Shola pass there, please. Let's give him answers. Let's give him answers. All right. Let's allow Augustine come up. Let's please to Mr. Mohammed Halal, please in the middle. You go to the middle, sir. Mr. Halal, yes, that's him standing. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. That will be followed by His Excellency. Okay, you're continuing, sir, for His Excellency, Mr. Obiang. Thank you, sir. Mr. Obiang, thank you, sir. Please, sir, face the camera, sir. Please face the camera. Please, Augustine, please face the camera. Now for Honorable Minister of Gas, His Excellency, Honorable Ekpo. Thank you so much. Ekpo, gas. And this one is for oil. And then our moderator. Those in support of that pipeline in Central Africa to be completed, say aye. Everybody should be in support of that now. What's that? This is for the moderator, Mr. Shola Adebanwo. Those in support, say aye. You're thinking I'll ask you to bring the money. Don't worry. Oga Gabriel knows where to get the money from to do the pipeline. Dr. James Shindi, where are you? Mr. Paul Mervyn, where are you? The chairman and MD, respectively, of Brevity. Please join them now for a quick family photo. Let's call this a wrap this afternoon. Thank you, Gladys. Please, Dr. Shindi, come up. Mr. Paul Mervyn, is he around? Is he around? If he's not around, we'll make progress. Okay. Ben, you can come up. Come on, Ben. Come up. Yes, please take a picture with them, sir. Take a picture with them. Thank you so much. Take a picture with them. PS, please. Let's do one final family photo. SecGen OPEC, SecGen GCFR, please, one final photo. Is Apple still in the room? Please, Apple, please come. Take this one real quick. Where's Apple? Okay. Apple is no longer here. Thank you very much. You have the picture? Ladies and gentlemen, see you this evening. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your refreshment. Richmond Osuji is my name. My pleasure it has been, and my pleasure it will be when we see tonight. Bye-bye. Please take care of your personal belongings.